Hello everyone, welcome back to the Batmosphere. I am Captain Logan, and look, it's Dan's news!
Look! Up in the sky, except for on your screen, it's me!
It's Dan's news. We put out the Bat Dan signal, and he was right there. Well, he was like 15 minutes late, but we waited around a while, and then he was there, on the roof, for the Bat Dan signal. Hi Dan, it's good to see you. It's been a while, man.
It's good to see you too. Yeah, it's always fun doing these. This is like my favorite time to look forward to. And like, honestly, I think this show is slowly turning me into a real Batman fan. I keep calling myself a fake Batman fan because I don't read a lot of the comics. Well, I do read some of the comics, but not like regularly.
Now so I stuff and you're like, oh, this is what Batman is. Okay.
Yeah, it's good. I'm happy.
We've been doing a lot of screen stuff too, though.
That's true. Yeah, no, it's been fun watching things that I hadn't really kind of caught up on, and also reading things, and yeah, it's good. I need to read more comics. That's what I keep learning from doing this, from reading some of these runs, is like, oh yeah, there's some really great ones out there.
Yeah, well, today's gonna help. Today's comic is that we're going to review is fascinating. We're going to do White Knight a little bit later. It's funny because Dan's the last couple of years been doing a lot of Power Rangers content, and I accidentally called that story White Light because that's an episode of season 2 Power Rangers when Tommy becomes the White Ranger, and on social media I accidentally called it Batman White Light. And a couple people were like, I'm pretty sure you're talking about White Knight, right? So if you weren't sure what to read for today and you wanted to be ready for our review, I apologize for misleading you with a Power Rangers title. Anyway, so today we're going to do a show on Batmobiles. We're going to reveal our definitive Batmobile a little bit later on the show. Some of the definitives have been kind of difficult for me. This one is not, and this one, of course, I talk about all the time. So when I say reveal, a lot of you guys that have watched me a long time will probably already know what I'm going to say, but it'll be fun to see Dan's, and I don't know if Dan has ever flat out told me his, but maybe so. I'll probably go, oh yeah, that's right, you've told me yours. Or maybe Dan will have a really hard time picking. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, that's that.
This one's hard for him. Because, again, some of the ones that we've done in the past, Alfred, it's like, I don't know, it's a little bit tough to grab onto. But this one, pretty darn easy for me. And, in fact, I would say my definitive Batmobile has a lot to do with why I'm a Batman fan in the first place and why I'm into comics. And, not to put too fine on a point on it, but I guess I could potentially even make the case that if it wasn't for my favorite Batmobile, I might not even be doing what I'm doing today. It's definitely caught up in all of that. It's a big part of my kind of chemical makeup. Surprisingly, we ended up picking a book that was kind of like the absolute perfect book to talk about for Batmobiles, which is not the reason I picked it. I just couldn't think of a really good story where the Batmobile featured as a real major story element, and I reached out to Eric and I asked him, and he didn't have any great ideas, and I was like, well, what's something that I've really been wanting to review lately? And we haven't done a lot of new comics on this show. The first couple shows, we intentionally went to real brand new Batman peripheral stuff, so we did Alfred first, and then we did Batwoman, and I was like, well, I've been meaning to talk about White Knight for a long time, and then I read White Knight, and I sent Dan's a message, and I was like, you won't believe how integral the Batmobile is to this story, and also how much it has to do with just Batmobiles in general, and it's going to fit perfectly into the show. Yeah. So that's really exciting.
Happy accident.
Welcome, everybody, in the comments. I see Blue Dragon 5 there, Solar Dragon's there. All the dragons have joined us today. John Ty, One and Only Productions, Matthew Basis here, Kellen O'Rourke. Welcome, everybody. Thanks a bunch for being here on the Batmosphere. And just like Dan's, I look forward to this every time we do it. I want to say every month. We do this almost every month. I'm surprised by how long it's been since we did one of these. I feel like we just did this, Dan. In a way, I feel like I haven't talked to you in a long time. In another way, it feels like we just did Clayface.
Well, it was like something like a month and a half ago or so, but you and I talked pretty recently. We just had a non-streamed chat.
That's what it was. Isn't it? Just a couple weeks ago, you and I got on and just hung out for a couple hours and talked about stuff. Yeah. Speaking of, I didn't end up actually buying any of that Tick stuff. I watched it for a week, and I almost bid on stuff, and then I ended up having to make a couple of other kind of larger purchases, and I decided against it. But for people that don't know what we're talking about, it's funny because I was careful not to bring this up on the channel at all because I didn't want any competition, and then I ended up not actually bidding on anything. something. But really, sadly, it's tragic. It makes me want to cry. A lot of the props from the Amazon Tick series were sold at auction online because the place that does it, one of these big fancy auction houses that sells a lot of like screen-used props and costumes and things, and you know, high-profile stuff. They had to do everything online because they couldn't have you know, live open auctions because of the virus. And so normal people like me had the opportunity to bid on stuff more easily than we would otherwise. Obviously, you can do like I think for a lot of those things you can do online bids and you can do phone calls, but they count on the day when the auction actually happens. And when this thing was all online, and man, I almost bid on stuff, and at the end of the day, I just ended up deciding I had spent too much money that week and I really didn't want to go any deeper. But I had a chance at some of the like stunt suits. And I don't know how much anything actually went for, because you have to have a sign in order to look at the bids, and I never actually got one, so I don't right now know what anything went for. But at the time I quit, I decided to quit, and I wasn't bidding. The big thing I wanted, which I didn't think there was any chance I'd be able to get my hands on, was the Tick head with the animatronic antennae with the remote, and it still worked, and you could use it. Was at $675, and I'm sure it brought well over 1,000. I bet that was 1,500 to $2,000.
Yeah, from what I saw, the things that I was tracking specifically, that suit, the suit from the pilot went for I think 600 something. That animatronic lobster head went for like I think it was like 1,600 or 1,200 or something. It went pretty high.
No,
the one that I thought
last time I looked, that was at $2,000 already. So
okay, maybe that's what it was.
But I mean, it was at $2,000. And then the suit you mentioned, the pilot suit, was at $1,100 the last time I quit. And also keep in mind that they put a 25% premium on top of everything also.
Yeah, I saw that little like Abraham Lincoln head thing, the one the little statue, that one went for like a couple $100. It wasn't that high. That was the only attainable-ish thing that seemed big enough, but not pricey in the end.
They had a Flag 5 watch that brought over $1,000.
Goodness gracious,
that's crazy. So I was like, well, with some of the smaller things going at those prices, there's no way I'm going to get an outfit. But I was trying. Blue Dragon 5, by stunt suit, I mean one of the suits that the stuntmen would wear, you know, when they were doing the more dangerous stuff. And so those didn't come with masks or anything. Well, in fact, the season 2 suit didn't come with a mask either. The only one that did was the pilot suit. And I also really kind of wanted that. I mean, obviously, if money was no object, I would have bid on almost everything.
Sure, yeah.
Tick collector I am, but it makes me feel like less of a tick collector. I didn't end up buying any of that stuff.
You tried a little bit.
But I looked at it a long time, and then everything was just a little bit higher than at the moment I really wanted it. And like, I could have, like, I had some cash on hand, but I ultimately decided I just didn't really want to do that kind of splurge then. So.
Probably for the best. I remember because I brought it up to you, and because you had sent me a picture, and I saw your Tick poster, and that reminded me of it. And I was like, "Oh yeah, they're auctioning off the Amazon Tick pilot or series stuff." Yeah. And you just went like locked in. You're like, "Oh," and I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And you're like, "I don't know if I should spend any of this stuff, but I want it." And I'm like, "Oh, I kept apologizing. It's like, I'm so sorry I showed you."
I was hard to talk to for about 20 minutes because I just had my
you're just staring at the screen going through. No, it was great. It was great.
No, Blue Dragon 5, they didn't sell any of the Terror's like actual supervillain garb, which was weird.
Yeah, there was like no Terror stuff in there really. Like there wasn't much.
Well, I think they added a few things after you and I looked at it initially, because the one thing I actually thought about bidding on that wasn't going for too much, but again I ended up just not bidding on anything. They had the outfit that he's wearing when he's at the drum kit during the cliffhanger, where the red button up long sleeve shirt, and then you got the drumsticks that he was wearing. And I really thought about bidding on that. And there was another pair of drumsticks that you could bid on all by itself.
I did see those. Yeah, that was pretty. Yeah, that's where I left off on the series. Cliffhanger.
Oh man, you've got to get back to it.
I do.
The first season is brilliant, and I mean, you know, the second season is worth watching, but it's not anything like as great as that first season. No, they didn't have Kevin's tinfoil hat. I think they may have had something from Kevin, but I don't remember. Anyway, so we should get back to Batman, but I just wanted to mention that because it was kind of interesting that stuff was there, and like I said, it hurt my feelings that even happened, because it was only a few months ago I was saying I'm sure the show will be on for 4 or 5 years, and as we discovered recently with the Snyder Cut announcement, I am no good at predicting things. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into, and I guess that counts as Batman news. I guess we can talk about that for a second.
That is very much Batman news. I was wondering if we were going to talk about it, but I figured you already probably talked about it ad nauseum on the channel.
Constantly on the Captain Logan show, but I'm totally willing to talk with you again about anything, Dan, since you didn't get to weigh in. So remind me to bring that back up if you want to talk about it when we get to the news portion. But let's do some Bat Life just for a little bit and find out what Batman-y things the two of us have been doing lately. Dan's, I have been watching through the Batman, although I haven't looked at it in the last couple weeks, but I'm somewhere in the middle of season 3, been finally watching through that show. Pardon me. I've seen all of season 1 at different points, so I went ahead and just started at 2. I was watching up, and I've been skipping the Clayface stuff because you and I just watched that, but other than that, I've been watching everything, and I've been enjoying it immensely. I don't have a whole lot to say about it right now, because we talked about the Batman kind of ad nauseum last show, but I just wanted to mention that I have actually indeed been watching through that show, and got through that really famous kind of big Joker episode that everybody loves, where he puts on a bat suit and all that. But anyway, yeah, it's a great show. And then watched that Batmobile's documentary that Warner Brothers put up. This also goes in the news segment. It's really funny, Dan. I saw a lot of blogs making a big deal out of Warner's kind of sleeper dropping this Batmobile documentary like it was brand new. And they put it on Warner's put it up on a YouTube channel, and a lot of people watched it that had never seen it, and just everywhere I just saw like, oh, this is wonderful, like high produced Batmobile documentary. I can't believe it just came out. And like, when did when did they have time to get this put out before the virus stuff? I'm like, yeah, it was made in 2012, and it came with the Dark Knight Rises discs. And a lot of people, back when Rises came out, told me to watch that documentary. I never got around to it. I forgot all about it. I'd never seen it, 8 years. And finally, it sleeper drops on that YouTube channel, and I watch it. It's really funny. I saw all these blogs that thought it was brand new. It's like, why is not one person asking if they think it's new where more recent Batmobiles are, like the BVS one? So weird. And it was obviously like really Dark Knight heavy, like really Dark Knight and Rises heavy, and it's got the Bane shot at the beginning, at the opening of it, and people are interviewed that are passed away now, But I guess, there's folks looking at that don't know as much about Batman as you and I do. But I just thought that was really funny. Like, even if you didn't know anything except the Nolan movies, which most people know, it's kind of weird that anybody thought that was new.
Yeah, they had streamed that. I had caught it, that they had streamed it. It was like right at the beginning of kind of the whole social distancing thing. I think it was either March or April. Yes, that they streamed that on their channel, and I think I caught it when they were streaming it, which was really random. But yeah, I was at San Diego Comic-Con in 2012 when they had all the Batmobiles there promoting that documentary. So I was dressed up as Bane in front of the cam. That was before Dark Knight Rises even came out.
Yeah.
But that was a cool opportunity to actually see all the Batmobiles in life.
Really know about the crazy Bane voice yet? I mean,
it was in the trailers.
But without getting a lot more of it, I think even with the trailers, we weren't making fun of it the way that we were after it came out, right?
I made a short before the movie came out where I was Bane, and I had the mask and I had the outfit, and I was going, I was wondering what I didn't say that because that wasn't really out that yet.
That's what I'm saying. But you wouldn't have been quoting any of the big
doing the
quotes
voice.
we all do, but you might have been doing the voice. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I've made a backbreaking joke, but that wasn't, confirmed that would happen. But of course it would happen. And yeah, so stuff like that.
You gotta at least have an attempt. Yeah, every Bane thing has a backbreak, and when it doesn't, you're like, that's weird. I was complaining about that recently in a stream of Injustice, where just to try not to repeat themselves, there is no backbreak move in Injustice 2 with Bane. It's really strange. How do you not do that? There's a knee. There's one where he goes up real high and but there's not just a pick up somebody and go over the knee move, because they did it in the first game, so they didn't want to repeat themselves. It was really weird. Especially because there are other moves that repeat from other characters, but I guess that was a complete overhaul, because that Bane looks completely different than the first Bane, because they went with like a real big heavy Bane, and the second one they did a little bit more of like a luchador wrestler version, kind of, at least in the build.
Well, it's so like that series is so like those games are so multiverse heavy, so it's like there's kind of different takes on those characters throughout the thing in the first place. Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, so there's some stuff, and then oh hey, look what I found yesterday, Dan, that I just really want to get my hands on. Look at this chair. This is the Secret Lab Omega Dark Knight chair. This is apparently on order for pre-order. That's coming out in July, and it's gorgeous. And it is a $400 chair. And I don't know if I'm going to go crazy enough to actually get that, but I want it. I really want that for the bunker.
When I saw $389, that almost seems like not that expensive for some reason for that kind of like chair.
I've never bought a gaming chair. Yeah, it is. And I mean, like, there's decent gaming chairs for like $250, but like, it is a gaming chair.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy?
I want that now.
Yeah.
Oh,
isn't it gorgeous? So good. Yeah, it's really pretty.
Wow.
Look, pillows.
Those head pillows. Yeah, those little head pillows. Because we had gaming chairs back at the old office. And they had those little tiny just strap-on pillows. I'm like, what are those even doing? It's not doing anything.
Yeah, I don't understand that. It's weird.
It has to be more comfy than this chair. I think whenever we do this show, I probably shift in this chair about 20 times in the first, like, it just in general. So I probably do need a good chair at some point.
Yeah, I don't have the most comfortable chair myself, but... That's just the one I want now. Yeah, and there's another Batman gaming chair that I saw once that was a little bit less expensive, and I think it was like $250 or $300. That was made by a third party. That was okay, but it wasn't licensed, and it has I think like ears that come up on the sides, and it's pretty cool looking. But I want that one now.
That one looks sleek. I like it. Where does he get those wonderful chairs?
Have you been doing any cool Batman stuff lately, Dan?
Not anything too crazy. Again, fake Batman fan here. I bought Birds of Prey on Blu-ray. I know you're not the greatest fan of that movie.
I can't get my mind around this. There is a movie out right now called Birds of Prey that I could go out and buy, and I just don't feel the need to spend full price on it. I'm gonna wait until it goes down, because I'm not gonna watch it again right away. I don't like it.
Yeah, I haven't watched it again yet either. There's been a couple movies that I've gotten recently. I picked up, well, that has nothing to do with Batman. Anyway, picked up Birds of Prey. Haven't watched it again. I really, now that I signed up again because I had once the Harley Quinn season 1 was done. And I know all I ever talk about is the Harley Quinn cartoon show. But once that was done, I ended my DC universe, and I knew it wasn't too long until that new season was coming around. But I didn't really feel, not that I didn't feel the need, but like I wasn't rushing to sign back up for DC Universe until we were doing this White Knight review. So I signed back up to read that, and I'm going to be catching up on Harley Quinn here soon, because I know there are like several episodes in season 2 at this point
now, because it was at like 6 or 7 last time I looked, and that was a couple weeks ago, and I haven't been keeping up with it either. I've not even finished the first season yet still. Brandon and I were finishing up Breaking Bad, the watch I was doing with him on that, and of course I've seen that show several times. We've talked about this before, but Brandon never had, so we finally finished that and watched the movie together. So now we can go back and watch Harley Quinn when he comes back over, but we just haven't done that yet. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So I'm looking to catch back up on that soon. I know Diedrich Bader, who does the voice of Batman on that and was the voice of Batman and Batman the Brave and the Bold. He actually recorded some voice lines for that show in his closet from home. Because of the whole, pandemic stuff.
A lot of animation have been doing that, yeah. And a lot of like big productions in animation, trying not to have to halt production, will like send setups to voice actors' houses so that it's a professional rig so that it'll sound right.
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly those look like. I'm assuming there's a lot of soundproofing and stuff.
Yeah, sometimes there's like a little, like you can get this like little thing that literally encompasses the microphone. So it's like you're speaking into like a little kind of just this already soundproof thing.
Sometimes it's a box. I've seen that, and it's like sound not proofing. What's it called? It's just like you know, the wall sound stuff like I've got back here.
Yeah, just sound foam.
Sound foam, yeah. But usually it's the kind that kind of looks like the walls in Bowser's Castle. You know, it's got like the
yeah, the little spikes.
The spikes, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, some voice actors already have that set up at home, like actual full on, like somebody like I'm sure Maurice LaMarche probably has his own rig at home. A lot of voice actors just do it from home.
You wonder, guys that do like, you know, 30 different voices a year, you wonder if they even leave their house. You know, they don't just like record it when they get up in the morning and then send it out.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, a lot of those peeps are already set, but not all of them. I'm sure D. Bader did, like, you know, he was in his closet. And there was my friends are working on that Predator game, and they have Arnold Schwarzenegger voicing his character Dutch from the original. Like, it's kind of like a DLC picking up with voice things, and so it's Arnold voicing the character again, and it sounds like he's like using like a laptop at home. I don't know when they got him for that. Probably not recently. They probably did it pretty recently. So it actually sounds like quality wise, kind of. I wonder how much of that stuff we're going to be getting where it sounds almost like they're recording with an iPhone or something. Because animated projects you don't think would get hit too bad because a lot of it can be done remotely.
Or
but
just where it sounds okay, but it's all inconsistent, where you can't put your finger on it, but you can tell the quality is all different, where it wasn't shot in the same place. So, and like I imagine. A lot of houses will just put like a ton of compression on it and try to make it, you know, get out any background noise, and you know, try to make it sound like it's in a studio, even if it's not. You'll probably hear a lot of, you know, like weird distortion and stuff. I bet.
Yeah, who knows? I'd imagine
straight up artifacting. That'd be really funny.
In the background.
It's just like, well, they might as well have just gotten a sound alike at this point. No, but it's actually the guy. It's really the person it's supposed to be.
But yeah, I don't have too much going on Batman wise. It's always, most of the time it's the stuff we're doing for the show.
Sure.
Otherwise, I have been going through the Terminator series, more Arnold news, more in Arnold Dan news. Yeah, I've just been
it's funny you say
steeped in Arnold.
We just did a commentary on that on Friday.
I caught it. Yeah, there's been a lot of Terminator stuff recently. Like right when I started watching the Terminators, all of a sudden everybody's doing Terminator content.
Like,
it was real weird.
I'm not doing it for any reason anybody else is doing it, probably because I didn't know other people were doing Terminator stuff either. I'm just doing it because I decided to try out a new co-host, and I asked him what things he'd like to do, and he mentioned Alien and Predator and stuff, and I was like, "Could we do Terminator?" Because I was going through Sarah Connor Chronicles, and I was like, "I'm kind of in a Terminator mood," and he was like, "Oh yeah, I've seen Terminator 2 like 6 billion times." I was like, well, let's go ahead and do those. So we did the first one, but it's really funny that you also have been in a Terminator mood lately.
Went through the entire series, and I hadn't seen Dark Fate, so finally watched Dark Fate. And
if you have a way to do it, well, I say that it's actually free on the IMDb channel, but watch some Sarah Connor if you get around to it, because
I want to, yeah.
Because we're about to do in a few weeks we're gonna do a spoiler cast on that show. Because I've already finished the first season, and I'm waiting on Austin, but he's gonna watch them too. He lives in Canada, so he can't stream it the way I did, so he had to order the discs. And he said the discs in Canada, even though the first season is 9 episodes and the second is 22, they cost the same. And they were only $20, so it wasn't horrible. But he was like, "It's weird. It's $20 for 9 episodes and then for 22 episodes. You can just buy them both together for one money." Because if it was all of it for 40, you wouldn't blink, you wouldn't think about that. But when 9 is 20 and 22 is 20, that's weird.
Yeah, that is strange. Weird. Very weird.
Anyway, and then the only other Batman thing I've really done lately is, I've got to build my Batmobile, my Lego '89 car. Remember I showed that a few months ago? I haven't even started on it. I bought that back in January, or like right around Christmas, and I still haven't started on it. I've got pieces of it out of the box, so I hope I haven't lost any, because that'd be bad. But I don't. I think I'm good. But anyway, but no. The only other thing is we watched Dark Knight last week with the Discord, and that was the fastest watch of that I've ever had. And everybody has some really fun, interesting perspectives and points and things on that movie, and I just made it go by really quickly. But that was a really fun event that we had.
I did that as well not too long ago, probably a few months ago with my my Discord as well. Yeah, it's fun.
Really
it's
interesting.
Yeah, it's fun because we weren't talking. I don't know if you were actually like physically talking to people or if you were just typing in a chat.
We do events. So the Geekvolution Discord we do as part of Patreon. And so if you're in the SSSS, you can get into the Discord, and we have, so it's a small group, and intentionally small because we have these kind of events and we can't have too many people in there. So you know, you gotta be cool and nice and stuff in there, or we'll boot you out because it's gotta be because we don't want a giant group in the first place, and everybody's got to get along in there.
Chill atmosphere.
Yeah, precisely. It's a chill Batmosphere. So we do these events, and usually there's like 11 to 10 or 11 of us in there, and we usually on Saturdays. We didn't do one this week, but well, I think they might have, but I couldn't make it. But anyway, last week we did like I said, we did Dark Knight, but we've done several other movies, and yeah, we get on we just get on audio and we all chat together, and we've done at least one where there were people there that hadn't seen the movie, so we asked people not to talk. We just listened to people's reactions during it. So we kept an audio line open, and occasionally there'd be like a quick comment, but usually just let people, you just hear people like laugh and stuff. And you think that would be awkward, but it's actually really kind of fun. It felt like everybody was in the same room together. We did that for Captain Invincible, which is my favorite B superhero movie. Which is was that really odd musical from 1985, 83. Yeah.
It made me think of that. What was that Ryan Reynolds movie where he was like the superhero, but he was a like an imaginary friend? You remember that, where he was like bleach blonde hair? Can't remember what that was called. Wonder Man or something. I can't. Anyway,
I don't know.
Sorry, when you said Captain Invisible, that's what I was thinking.
That's not ringing any bells. But if you've not seen Captain Invisible, you have to. I'll send you a link. It's on YouTube.
It's
amazing.
Do it.
I asked. You've got to see it.
Captain
Invincible. Is that Paperman, Daniel Davis? I didn't even realize that was Ryan Reynolds. If that's the case.
Paperman. That is it.
Yes,
that was
Ryan.
Ryan.
But I've never seen it. Somebody sent me that years ago. I've still not watched it.
Yeah, I just remember the trailer for it. It looked decent. But yeah, thank you. I couldn't remember the name, but when he said Captain Invincible, that's for some reason I rang in my head. But yeah, no, it is fun watching that movie with other people, but especially in that case where people hadn't seen it. I don't know if I've come across people who I've interacted with who haven't seen The Dark Knight.
Well, no, I'm just saying that that was me just kind of digressing. Dark Knight, of course, everybody had seen. I just mean,
okay,
we did one with Captain Invincible where everybody got together and there were people that hadn't seen it, so we did it differently.
Okay.
But when we did Dark Knight, everybody talked over it.
Yeah. Dark Knight's fun to watch with a group because
that was just
we were just
aside.
typing.
Dan, I need like a
okay.
I need to make like an insert for pointless asides and just take up the whole screen with it. Like,
isn't that this like half of this show is pointless asides? I feel like anything I'm a part of devolves into pointless asides because I'm very tangential.
Yeah, I mean, this show's very podcasty. I mean, there's except for occasionally when I put things on screen, there's really no reason to actually watch us on the screen. And like I listen to a lot of podcasts like this that are, they're about the subject they're about, except for when they're not, and then they trail off for a little while, and then they eventually come back. And that's absolutely what this show is. Yeah, more so than anything else I do. And I think a lot of that is just because I don't get to hang out with Dan as much as I'd like to, and so I don't rein it in as hard as I might on other shows because I want Dan to get to talk about whatever Dan gets to talk about. I don't get to see him enough.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the Terminators here. No, I'm kidding.
But sorry for being self-indulgent. But I'm only like this much sorry about that.
I'm zero sorries.
So let's go ahead and go on now to the Bat News segment, shall we? And Dan, the first thing I want to bring up, I talked about again on the Captain Logan show, but I thought I would mention it to you in case you hadn't heard about it, in case you wanted to weigh in on it. Do you know about Ruby Rose leaving Batwoman?
I do, yeah.
So that's happening, and they're continuing on with the show, and they're recasting, and I won't spend a lot of time harping on this. I ranted about this a little bit on the Captain Logan show, so I'll keep this part of it brief. They're making a big deal out of making sure that they cast another person in the LGBTQ community for that, and I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's acting. Like I really don't get that. It's like, why don't you just cast somebody that can do the part? Like, why does that matter? Anyway, but I already ranted about that. I just don't understand that. Nobody can explain it to me. It's weird. And I've heard people say, like, well, we got to make sure that like, you know, those people can find work in Hollywood. And I'm like, is that a problem in this day and age? Or like, are there really that many people being discriminated against and not getting hired in Hollywood because they're lesbians? Like, is that happening like it used to as much? I don't know. I just think it's kind of weird. Like,
yeah. I was seeing about like the specific, like a lot of people were kind of prying into, well, not prying into because they were curious, but like a lot of people were really delving into why she left the show. And then she had posted something on Instagram where she was saying like, that's not the case. What, like, but the people who know about the whole situation. So, I mean, I guess we don't really know exactly why she left the show. I mean, there's a lot of reasons or things you could speculate about it, but I mean, I thought she was good. She was probably the biggest draw for the show for me. But I still wasn't very interested in it. It was more so the writing of the show wasn't that great when I was watching it. But I only watched the pilot episode or the first couple episodes. What episodes did we watch
3,
when we were?
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I think she's too good for that show, but I think very quickly her acting devolved because it really felt like she didn't want to be there. And for me, this kind of helps to confirm that. I mean, like everything I've read about this, it sounds like she and that crew didn't get along. And she says now that she's finally talking about it a little bit, she's not saying much, but it sounds like from what she's saying, it wasn't even entirely her decision. Like at first, a lot of people were assuming that you know, she left completely of her own accord, and like I'm sure it was somewhat mutual. I'm sure she kind of didn't want to be there, and it sounds a little bit like part of it is that whole somebody that hasn't really done a lot of TV, not being used to the long hours and like the kind of work that is, and how insanely grueling it is. But it also sounds like she was difficult to work with for other people there because she wasn't having a good time. And that's what some other people working with her kind of made it sound like too. And so maybe it was mutual, but maybe it also was, you know, other people, including maybe producers, might have asked her to leave if she didn't decide to. I'm not sure, but
yeah,
it doesn't
seems like a
it
number of factors.
Situation. Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of work, a show like that when you're number one on the call sheet. But
well, and I agree with Blue Jacket
what you sign up for
when he says that it's hard to believe that it has nothing to do with injuries because she had a huge stunt that went wrong and she was nearly paralyzed over it. And the initial articles that I read said it had nothing to do with that, but you can't know that for sure, especially when, you know, nobody's coming right out and saying what the reasons are.
Well, didn't the stunt coordinator for that show? Yeah, didn't the stunt coordinator for that show die practicing a stunt? I'm pretty sure.
I thought I heard about a death related to that show, but I wasn't sure who it was.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a lot of heavy stuff surrounding that. If you're that person on that show, I would be like, you know, that would certainly be a concern.
I mean, so I guess that's sad for the like 6 people that watched that show, but that show's also not performing real well. Like people aren't watching it, and CW, of course. You know, their kind of PR spin is, you know, we're real committed to the longevity of the show, and we already greenlit season 2, and obviously that show will probably keep going unless for pandemic reasons things take a lot longer to get off the ground again. And then if they needed to start cutting shows, I would think that would be one of the first to go, just because of ratings, unless they got better, and I don't know about it. But I know after the first couple episodes it dropped really, really hard. Even if that first episode had dropped pretty hard, and then after that, I mean, I think it plummeted. So I think if any show on the CW is likely to get canceled after just 2 or 3 seasons, it's that one. And if it doesn't, it means they'll leave on everything to look like they're doing better than they are. Because I also don't know what Legends numbers are like, and I would assume that show's not being watched either, but maybe it is. I don't know. I don't keep up with that stuff anymore, so I'm not looking at numbers because I don't like it and I don't care enough to look at that. So we're only bringing that up right now because it has Bat in the title of it.
Yes, exactly. It's Bat news.
We reviewed the beginning of that. And like I said back then, like my standards were real low. I mean, my expectations were in the floor, so it was a lot better than I expected it to be, but it still wasn't great. And it was, and even compared to their other shows, it was kind of cheap looking. Everybody said that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was one of my criticisms as well. Plus, just the writing. The writing is so wooden and so just not good. A little too cliched in certain aspects for me. I don't know. If there's like, look, I don't go into anything wanting to hate it. Like sometimes, if it's good, it'll surprise me, and I'll be like, oh, hey, this is actually really great. I did not go into that Harley Quinn show thinking I would like it, and I ended up loving it.
Yeah.
It's same thing with Batwoman. I was going into that going, I hope it's really good. I love Ruby Rose. I like Batman. I don't know anything about Batwoman. Make me love Batwoman show, but then.
Well, and of course, I've had a lot more experience with the CW shows than you, and I know those producers and those writers, and it wasn't gonna be great, whatever it was. Like, you know, unless they get like totally brand new blood. Well, I guess the showrunner is different, but I don't know. That hasn't seemed to help them a ton. There's a lot of one step forward, two steps back with those shows. So like I was watching some of, you know, the Flash from this last season, and I fell off at that. Like it was better than it had been, but it still wasn't good enough to hold my attention. And then after, you know, the way the Flash is handled in Crisis, you know, we make a really big deal out of that whole first half of that season. We're preparing for him to die, and then there's a loophole and he doesn't have to die in Crisis. And so I'm like, well, that felt like a big waste of my time. And of course I knew that was probably what they were going to do, but that showrunner was a lot better and the scripts were a little bit better than they had been. So I don't know, I gave it the benefit of the doubt. And maybe the rest of that season is still okay despite that, but I lost interest. Didn't keep watching that. There's also no word yet on whether or not Green Arrow and the Canaries is going to go to series. Apparently, Berlanti and everybody is still, you know, hoping that happens, of course. But you know, that backdoor pilot was terrible, so I kind of hope that show doesn't get made. And I don't think the lead has any chance of carrying that show. But what would that be about? Apparently one. That is apparently in limbo right now. It's kind of teetering on the edge. So Superman and Lois definitely got picked up, but that show is kind of teetering, which makes me think it won't get picked up.
Interesting. So would Stephen Amell be coming back for the Green Arrow and the Canaries?
It's his daughter in the future, and that actress is terrible, and she cannot carry a show by herself. I'm convinced of that.
Oh.
She was in part of that season, and she's not great. And then they do a backdoor pilot where they go to the future, and it's just like not an interesting future at all. It's so lazy. It's like 20 years ahead, and very little is different, technology-wise and stuff. And anyway, it's like the city was in like really good shape because Crisis changed things. Basically, Green Arrow got to remake the universe, kind of, and he made it so that his city was like in perfect shape. Then I guess in 20 years it falls apart again, and. It's just characters that have been named Black Canary and his daughter, and but minus Sarah Lance. Like, she's not going to be in that show, like, moving forward, I don't think. So, and who cares? And I don't know. So it wouldn't have been a good cast, overall. And, like, who cares about Black Siren Laurel in more stuff? And I don't know. So, yeah. I hope that doesn't end up happening. It looked terrible. It looked really, really terrible. And it was also unfair to Arrow fans because it was the second to last episode. They used the penultimate episode as a backdoor pilot for that show because like Arrow was already dead. Like, Oliver's already dead at that point. And going into his finale, he's gone. So of course they show him in the afterlife.
Weird. Very weird.
Does anybody care that I'm spoiling this? I doubt that.
I don't. I fell off on Arrow 4 years ago. Longer.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, David liked that actress, apparently. I don't know. I thought she was terrible. I cannot see her carrying her own show, but whatever. Okay.
Everybody likes what they likes.
Dan, what other Bat news do you want to talk about?
There's been a lot of the Batman news, during the hiatus of filming, which is now going to be going back underway. That the UK has granted productions the ability to move forward under certain, guidelines.
Yeah, but they still don't know for sure when it starts again. They're hoping July.
Yeah, well, there is was that the thing about that? I think they were just granted yesterday. I was seeing news about them granting production to continue.
The
Let's see
news
here.
is that the UK has approved new filming guidelines that will
There you go.
eventually allow them to resume, but it's case-by-case basis on every single thing. You got to actually read the article, Dan.
No, I only read headlines and keep scrolling. You're right. You're right.
But yeah, so they're hoping that they can start again in July, but they don't know for sure yet. So
Yep.
That is
I just read that right now.
BatmanNews.com, an article there. Yep.
Yep. A lot of the actors have been talking about the project during the hiatus. Paul Dano was just quoted as saying that the script is potentially really powerful, and like it's all the same things. A lot of the actors saying it's raw, gritty, dark, the darkest thing you'll ever see. It's a chance for I think Jeffrey Wright was saying that. The man playing Commissioner Gordon, he was talking about how this could be setting forward a new kind of style for Batman moving forward. All these things that
will, if it's good, and especially if it's popular, right? Like whatever the big thing is gonna kind of pave the way moving forward, and everybody's gonna copy that. If you're Nolan, everything that's not Batman also tries to copy that.
Yeah, well,
and he's just forget that. The same was true of Burton too. I mean, if you look at that movie was also insanely influential, regardless of what you think of the story with that movie, particularly with superhero stuff and comic book things in general. Obviously, there were a lot of attempts at especially pulpy comic stuff in the early 90s because of that, and a lot of them kind of had that 89 atmosphere to some degree. Even the Flash TV show felt like 89 Batman, which was very strange because it was the Flash, but
yeah. Well, I mean, that's what happens when you get influential filmmakers with very definitive visions on their projects. Like Nolan's just an inspiring filmmaker, period. So he's inspired more than just superhero movies.
As major as Batman, like before 89 was, the trailer came out and people knew what that movie was going to look like. A lot of people didn't think that movie was going to be successful because people, remembered the campy thing and they didn't know what that was going to look like. And then, of course, that was huge, and it was the biggest phenomenon even before the movie came out. And then Batman and Robin kind of killed that whole momentum, and people didn't really expect that to happen again. Like that is lightning in a bottle twice. And so when Nolan comes in and begins, but particularly Dark Knight after that, that happens a second time where it becomes insanely influential, and everything after that, or at least a lot of things in the action genre, are going to that style of filmmaking. But also everything sounded like that for 10 years. You still have a lot of movies that are trying to ape exactly what Zimmer was doing in Batman Begins and Dark Knight. We just reviewed, Connor and I, a week ago, Bloodshot, which is a B movie. I don't know why he made me watch that, but we watched that, and it's just Zimmer's score to Batman Begins again.
Yeah,
like it's still doing that. So anyway, well, but particularly the string work. So that whole movie is just it's just that kind of atmospheric, non-melodic stuff. And if this movie is huge, then a lot of things will try to be that, and Batman comics to some degree will try to be that. And if there's a TV show, it will probably also go to that place a little bit, unless they want to be the exact opposite because Warner's tells them to. I don't know. Sometimes that happens also. But anyway,
that's true. I'm excited for Giacchino scoring it. We got a taste of his score in the camera test for the suit. So I think Giacchino should be doing something, his own thing, putting his own stamp on it. And I always love his music. His score for 09 Star Trek is fantastic and has just the right blend of reference to the original while not, full on aping it. He's taking the spirit of it and doing his own thing with it.
But I think he's a composer that actually improves with time. It's getting to the point where you can't tell a Giacchino script just because he's scoring it, which is really nice. He's gotten super versatile, and I don't mean that it's bad when a composer has kind of a recognizable flair. but there's a fine line between that and a composer that's just kind of like, you know, lost the spirit or run out of ideas or something. And so you get a lot of guys who a couple decades into their work, every score kind of sounds the same, or or with Danny Elfman, a couple of scores in, all of his stuff started sounding the same. And I mean, I love Danny Elfman, and but I think, you know, some scores he really kind of jumps outside of himself and tries something, and some scores he just goes, I'll just kind of go back to the well and, you know, do the same thing I usually do. And Giacchino has had a real evolution in his musical. I don't even want to say style. I mean, I think he just kind of, sort of like Zimmer, approaches every project differently.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the only one that really kind of didn't annoy me, but like when Jurassic World came out, I remember watching, like, it was like maybe 20 minutes into that movie. I was like, this movie, and it's not his fault, but that movie was so overscored. Like every single moment had, especially for the opening of that movie, it was just all score and just telling you how to feel the entire time. And I'm like, just stop doing this. I get Spielberg does that, but like it felt too much. And I don't know if that was him or Trevorrow, but it's not too often I'm watching a movie where I'm like, stop scoring the scene. Like, just stop having a score right here. It's too much.
But then it was fine in Jurassic House, because that movie was so insanely over the top. It needed to be that bombastic. The score told you it was okay to not take it seriously. And Jurassic World, to some degree, wanted to be taken seriously. So you're right, it did feel a little emotionally manipulative there. When you get in Jurassic House, it's like, oh, okay, so it is supposed to be a cartoon then. All right.
Yeah, we all know of your irrational love of Jurassic House, Cap. You don't need to shove it in our face every single video.
I'm sorry, but I'm just saying both those scores have that, except it worked in that movie. Because
you're not wrong.
It's terrible and it knows it, or does it?
Because the new Raptor T-Rex is Bugs Bunny, literally.
It really is. Overall says they're alive, like me. Okay, so. I put that in my review of that movie a month and a half ago. No fewer than 12 times, Dan.
Oh yeah. Well, no, I watched. I didn't watch it all, but I have started. I've been pecking away at the Jurassic House video. There's only so much I can take.
Well, that's okay. I understand. Only so much of my voice or that movie.
I think no, the movie. Look, I didn't hate the movie. I actually gave it a decentish review when it came out. But it's that series. I don't like the third one. We'll see how that goes.
Oh, it has to stay like insane and crazy and not so bombastic, and you can't take it seriously at all, because if it tries to be poignant or something. Or like, it has to be faux poignant. It can't be like, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. If it takes itself too seriously, I'm out. Like, I will walk out of the theater. I probably won't, though.
Oh, I doubt it will. I mean, you have the same people working on it.
But they have to know what they're making, and there's a little bit of a question. It's not Gotham bad. We're like, I really don't know what they think they're making, but yeah. But I don't know. You can't approach that at this point. You can't approach that earnestly. You just can't.
Yeah. I feel like Jurassic House on some levels knows what it's doing, but on other levels it does not.
Tyler Overall says, I've been watching 1 minute of Superhero Rewind every day for the past 9 years.
Same here.
Anime 2020, does Cap want to own a Batmobile? I mean, who doesn't want to own a Batmobile? Even non-Batman fans, I think a lot of them would not say no to a Batmobile.
Where'd you keep it? I guess you have probably a garage or something, but like I live in an apartment complex.
Yeah, you wouldn't
weird
want
to have a
something
Batmobile
like
here.
That. No, you'd get it keyed and stuff, or somebody would like slash your tires or try to steal it. Somebody would try to hotwire it.
It might be too long to fit into a conventional garage.
You know what you'd have to do? Yeah, it depends on which one you got, right? Like,
it's true.
But what I would want to do, or even if it wasn't too long, you might have fins that were too high or went out too far in the back.
Or it's too fat.
Right.
Whole
if you were just gonna park it in a parking parking lot or in a driveway and hope for the best, I would recommend you get the security system from 60s Batman, so that there's like bottle rockets shooting out the back whenever somebody tries to break into it.
There's Roman candles going off. I'll look into that when I do eventually get my Batmobile. Maybe.
Blue Dragon 5 says the mundanity is a Batmobile ownership. I don't think anything will be mundane about owning a Batmobile.
Yeah. One day when the world collapses, we'll all have Batmobiles and the post-apocalypse driving around.
You want to talk real briefly about that documentary? Because I'd never seen it before.
Sure.
It's cool.
The end.
Yeah. No, it's neat. I gotta tell you, man, seeing all of, and I guess you actually got to see them all together, so you wouldn't have had this. I didn't realize they even did that. So like I was kind of blindsided by, they put all the cars together, and they had like a car show, and like the car show thing is cool. I guess in Vegas they showed them all off, but the bigger thing for me was just seeing them all drive down the highway together.
Yeah,
that was so neat.
It's powerful seeing them all together. It really just gives you this flood of like, oh my gosh, like it's when you grow up watching like so many iterations of Batman, it's literally like the Avengers coming together in that circle shot. Like just seeing them all together, they shouldn't be together, but they are, and it's amazing.
And then weirdly, you get in a place where it's like, even though, you know, if you're you know, kind of our age, you probably, some of those cars came after your favorite car or after cars that you grew up with, but once you have them all, it's hard to kind of imagine the world without certain ones, so like it's more complete to have them all. So just having them all together, it's like, oh yeah, it's like it's complete now. I saw them all together. And I mean, yeah, there have been some cars after that. As much as I like the BVS car, it doesn't feel like a definitive Batmobile to me. Like, I like it, but it doesn't feel like, maybe I've just gotten too old now, you know what I mean? Like maybe like past my formative years or whatever. I'm like, yeah, after the Tumbler, it's kind of, you know, Batmobile's done. And like everything with that and before that, those are the cars that matter. But I'm not saying that definitively, you know, moving along, I may feel differently about it. I know there's some folks in the comments that said that they prefer the BVS Batmobile, or that's their favorite. It's a cool car. It's kind of a neat. It's still sort of got that tank thing, but it's also actually a car. So it's sort of like a neat, you know, like conglomeration of those kind of two ideas. And we'll talk about this later, but the car that opens, because we see a bunch of other ones, but the Batmobile that opens, White Knight, feels like 4 or 5 screen Batmobiles all put together to me. Yeah,
definitely. I was definitely getting vibes of, and at that point they had the Snyder Batmobile as well. It is really like a combination of so many different Batmobiles, and it even has I love Batmobiles that incorporate the bat ears. I don't know why, but I just love it when they do that. Yeah.
The most fun thing in that documentary for me, and maybe I had heard this before, and I know they took like pieces from other special features of things to make that, but some of them were new interviews, or at least I think that's what happened. So I don't know if I'd heard this before, but the guy who designed the '89 car said that when he first put it together, he wasn't thinking practically at all, so he forgot to put doors on it.
Oh my gosh!
And I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah,
where like Tim Burton looks like they make a model of it, and Tim Burton's like, it's brilliant, it's perfect, I love it. It's just weird enough, right? But he goes, but I don't know how we're gonna put a person in it. How do you get in it? And so they had to, and he was like, I hadn't even thought of doors. Which is hilarious. Like, you make cars for a living and you didn't think of the doors? Like, that's how creative and abstract he was getting. And maybe that's what working with Tim Burton does to you, or you just start forgetting how people get into buildings and
it's just style. It's not actually like the graphic design element of it.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was really funny. But that's one of the coolest things about that car is that the top of it slides.
Yeah. I just sent you a couple of the pictures of from my SDCC trip in 2012 when we were looking at the Batmobiles. That's of the camo tumbler and the other tumbler on Skype.
On Skype, okay.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm disappearing. Oh no, I'm still here, but
you actually didn't disappear at all on my end.
No, I was joking. I was acting as if because you're pulling up the thing. But I think there should be a chat button somewhere. There's on the screen. I think it's bottom right. There's like a little text bubble thing.
Where the thing is, yeah.
So there's me in front of the armored tumbler, and then the camo tumbler, and then the kind of a close up shot of the tumbler. I can't find any other pictures of the other ones. I know I have video of them, but those files would be too big to send.
Yeah, the 89 car's back there. Yeah, I have seen several Batmobiles in my day, but never all together like this.
Yeah, it was really, really cool to see them all in person, and there were so many people just gathered around, like taking pictures, and they were letting people get in the tumbler. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get. I didn't get in the tumbler because we had other things to do, but I wanted to get into the tumbler because that would have been cool.
That's neat that they actually allowed them.
Yeah, they had like kids and some adults going in. I didn't know where to line up to get in there, and we were just running through real quick in the first place. But yeah, no, it's overwhelming. See, I'd imagine you've seen some of them in real life. You had to have seen at least the Futura or something.
So I've seen several 66 cars. I've seen a screen-used one and replicas at numerous conventions. I mean, I've probably seen the 66 car 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
The 89 car I've seen at least twice, and it was early enough in my life, I can't tell you if it was a replica or the real deal. I'm honestly not sure. Tunica, Mississippi has a Hollywood casino there where they have a lot of props and vehicles, screen-use stuff, and they had a Batmobile there, and a lot of the props of movies, like I saw one of the chest plates for the T-1000 and some things like that. I've seen a lot of props there that were actually screen used, but that Batmobile may have actually been a replica. I'm not sure. And then they also had the Schumacher car there, so I've seen that, and I think they had the Batwing there too, the Schumacher Batwing. I've seen that too.
Yeah. The Schumacher vehicles are crazy. Like, they're just insane looking.
Like, they're very cartoony.
They are, but well, I mean, like he always talked about like the toyizing or whatever he called. I can't remember what he referred to it as, but like just everything was a toy. They referred to get props as toys and the cars as toys. Everything was a toy. So I mean, it's just a live. It's just like a big little Hot Wheels that is just blown up to life size.
Yeah, I have a lot of nostalgia for that Batman Forever car. I've never cared for the Batman and Robin one as much.
Yeah.
And it's funny because that one's actually a little bit sleeker. Like, it's a little less crazy, which is weird because that movie was a toy commercial. But it's actually a little less strange. For some reason, it bounces higher than the Forever car. Like, they both kind of bounce in the back.
The wings.
Really careful to make it lightweight, and then the wings just made it disastrous. It just bounces. And then they added a sound effect that made it worse. They were just like kind of steered into that skid, so to speak, and they're like, no pun intended. and so like when it's going down a hill, it's just like boing, boing. You just hear like just constantly. It's ridiculous. But the coolest thing about the Batman Forever car is that you can see the engine and the kind of innards in the sides. Through the kind of gaps through it. That apparently they kind of looked at sea life and stuff and tried to make it look like almost an anatomical thing. Which, I mean, it's a bat. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And then and it felt like they tried to backtrack when they were like, and then like we looked at bat wings or something. And I was like, okay, all right. Like, it didn't seem like it had a lot to do with a bat, really. But I guess I can kind of see it with like the skeletal structure of a bat where you can kind of see the bones through the wings, I guess is supposed to be the idea, but I honestly think that was an afterthought. I don't know if they were actually looking at that, but I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, and the credit card. Anime, please. The credit card.
And Mutali says we should get Geekvolution credit card.
Ooh. Mr. Roboto said, could we get a Captain Logan 60s Batmobile? Is there like a Captain Logan version of a Batmobile? That'd be kind of neat.
I'd have somebody design me one, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool, actually. We got to get a Geekvolution Batmobile going at some point.
Well, somebody designed...
Get it mocked up.
Yeah, I think it was Rockman who designed me a Batman plus TNG inspired Captain Logan outfit that has a cowl with my hair like sticking out the top of it, which is really cool looking. And I would love a car that went with that suit. So that suit was like, it had a lot of red in it because it was kind of like a TNG uniform turned into a Batsuit, which sounds stupid, but it looks great. And
that sounds cool to me.
I would kind of want the car to have some red in it.
Yeah, it sounds Robinish.
Sort of like the 60s
just
car
thinking
has
about
red
it.
in it.
Yeah, it has that red. We already talked about the Batmobile for the Batman on here, but I like that kind of. There's a little bit of red going on in there too, right? I'm trying to remember now. The Batman, the new
I
Batmobile.
Think so, or was it all blue?
Or is it just the brake lights I'm thinking of?
Maybe you're just thinking of brake lights. I don't know.
I remember there was an accenting of red, but I'm not sure if it was in the car or not. No, there was like red neon, wasn't there? I'm pretty sure there was like kind of like a red neon look to it. Now I'm blanking on it too.
I think you're right about that, but maybe.
Okay.
Because this is what I'm remembering, that it's got kind of this blue that goes.
Oh no, it's the brake lights, but they have. But it is the way the brake lights are. It looks very red because they had the top light like most like SUVs have, where they have a brake light at the top and then the two brake lights on the back sides of the car. So it kind of looks like a face a little bit, and it lights up the engine. The engine has like red lighting in there. Yeah, so there is some red neonish going on with that car, and it just that's a sexy car. Anyway,
why don't we go ahead and go on to our definitive Batmobile now? And this shouldn't take too long, but mine's the '89 car. I mean, it's real kind of obvious. Everybody knows that about me. I love that car. I think that is the absolute definitive Batmobile. It's not just my favorite. It's the definitive Batmobile for me. It's what I think of when I think of, Batman driving a car. And again, it's, I mean, I don't want to say that it's necessarily the first one I ever saw, because I don't know if I saw 66 or things from 89, one before the other. I'm not totally sure. But I just don't think it gets any better than that. I mean, it's just kind of seared in my brain. What I love about the 89 car is it doesn't look like anything else. Like there's a lot of inspiration from other like vehicles, but not cars, like it's all built around a missile. It's such a cool idea. And it's I don't know, it's super sleek, and it opens at the top and doesn't have doors, and it's like wonderfully impractical, and it looks kind of, like you want to drive it, but if it is coming at you, it looks horrifying, because again, it's like a bullet is just flying at you. And it's just wonderful. I don't know. And it goes, I think also that car goes better with its suit than any other car goes with a suit. It's like, you want those two things together. It's almost like somebody took the Michael Keaton bat suit and they made a car out of it. And I don't think there's any other suit that feels that much like them.
Minus the weirdly shaped Batman symbol on the 89 suit.
Yeah, but I like that too. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a little weird. Every single time I go back to it, it's always slightly weird for me. That there's two different. When the poster is like the bat symbol we know, and then you have that kind of weirdly odd extra little flips to it, and it just throws me off.
And it's not like he doesn't have that iconography on any of his other gadgets, because on the wheels here you have the regular 89 Batman logo, and then the bat wing is just that logo. Yeah, literally.
So it's always strange and a little jarring to me, but that's the only thing that I aesthetically don't really like about that suit. But everything else is fantastic.
So what is your definitive Batmobile, Dan?
Well, I mean, mine wouldn't exist without it's kind of a tie between the '89 Batmobile and this is a really tough decision for me, because I like a lot of the cars, but I mean, obviously a lot of the other cars take inspiration from that Burton design. It's long and sleek, like a lot of the later ones are long and sleek. But it's tied between that and the animated series one, which is pretty much the Burton one, but a little bit different. It's a little bit more car-like, but it has that same kind of top opening that. Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have doors either. Sure.
Yeah, it has the same top opening. It has the same long sleekness. It just has a little bit more of the front of a regular car. It almost looks a little bit more tank. It's like a long limo tank. And it's just so... One of the reasons that I love the animated series so much is that kind of Art Deco design, and that it just looks like the corner of a building is coming at you. and it just looks so good. And
yeah,
Batman's kind
it's
of
weird how long it is. I've never understood that. I mean, I love that car, and I've got a lot of nostalgia for it because, of course, I was a huge fan of that show. And I like that they were clearly looking at the '89 car when they made that, but it is a car that goes better for that Batman. And again, with that Batsuit than the '89 car does. Like, that should not be jet black like the '89 car is. Like, it should be blue to go with that bat suit. And I mean, I realize that suit is like gray and, well, no, it's blue, right? It's gray and blue. It goes better with that suit.
And there's gray and blue in the car. Like those little shielding things are gray, and you have that yellow too from it's all the same color elements from his suit.
But yeah, like, why is it a limousine? Like, why would you want a car that you're gonna fight crime in that only two people can sit in to be the length of a limousine?
It's the 90s. You'd imagine there's like a super beefed up engine. Obviously, you see it in the front, but also like supercomputer elements. It's literally a moving computer in a way. You can do a lot of things with that car, so you'd think the technology would have to be crammed in there somewhere.
All I'm going to say is the technology clearly evolved pretty quickly, because when you get to Adventures of Batman and Robin, he's driving a much smaller car at that point. It's like, no longer do I need an engine that is like half a city block anymore.
Yeah. Well, and Batman evolves. He's always tinkering. He's always revising and reiterating.
I don't need half a city block for my engine block anymore. Like you expect that thing to be able to take off and go into space. Yeah, because you had the car in Batman Returns where the sights can come off of it, and it really was just like a fuselage. It was just like a missile that you were driving down the road. And you think this would do something like that too, considering how long it is. Like, it should do something. It should transform into something.
Well, in '89 as well, you have the thing where it shoots. It has to, in order to turn fast, it has to shoot out a grappling hook to actually make sharp turns. Otherwise, that thing is just going to go into any building if it's speeding down the way. We should probably not forget about talking about the Batmobile that climbs up walls in Batman Forever?
Batman Forever, or Batman and Robin doesn't do that. I forget. No, it's
Batman and Robin?
Forever that it climbs up a wall.
I'm pretty sure it's Forever. Yeah.
No, that's right. No, it's ridiculous. It shoots,
we have to mention that.
Yeah. Well, see, that's just escalation, right? That's just, we got to get bigger and bigger. In '89, it shoots out a rope around a pole so that it can turn sharper. And then in Returns, it doesn't do anything with a rope like that. It just goes, oh, I can just like put a I don't know what you'd call it, like a base on the ground, and then the car pulls up and it just turns herself around and then comes back down. Remember that? It does that. And then it also has the sides that pop off so that it can go between alleyways. And then when you get to Batman in Forever, it's like, we got a brand new car. It's got to do something else really cool. Well, we're not going to go to space with it yet. I bet 5 would have been that. If Schumacher had made another Batman movie and he wasn't allowed to do what he wanted to, they would have forced him to take it to space. Batman Forever, it shoots a grappling hook just like Batman does and goes up a wall.
It's just the escalation of, oh, Batman climbs up walls with Robin. Well, let's have the Batmobile climb up a wall. Whose idea was that?
How could you be sure it would hold? Like, that's already a question sometimes with grappling hooks. Like, how do I know for sure that this is that I'm not going to fall on this? But you're talking about like 2 tons of vehicle.
Yeah. Batman was worried about the weight of him and Vicky Vale in '89, and then he's taken an entire tank up the side of a wall.
You're right, Blue Dragon 5. The base thing I said, you could call that a turntable. That's good. It's a turntable. But yeah, no, it's so silly that, like, Schumacher gets really literal, where it's like, okay, so the Batmobile is like an extension of Batman, so it has to do things just like Batman, so it like scales a wall. Wouldn't it have been great if that had been the opportunity for them to do a
window gag?
The 60s Batman window gag? That's exactly what I was going to say. Where
it would be amazing.
You'd have some famous cameo where somebody comes out of window, like the Batmobile's gone by, and it's like, Marge, there's a car that went past the window.
Would have been like, it would have been of the time, have like Jay Leno pop out and be like, that's a nice car.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah,
because he's a car head anyway.
He is.
I would say close second and or third. I guess if those two were tied for first for me, the Tumbler. The Tumbler is just fantastic, and I love that. That's an insane design for a Batmobile. It's very militaristic and full on tank looking, but you get that great moment in The Dark Knight where it turns into the Batpod. Like it literally has, just like all the other Batmobiles where there's some sort of evolution to it. It has an ejectable motorcycle that comes out of it as well.
Well, I think the idea was supposed to be, or they said this in the documentary, that the guy making that car, I don't remember his name, and you know Nolan and the producers of that film, like they loved the Tumbler so much they thought it just made sense in that story. You know, for the sake of stakes, and so Batman would have to lose something that you kind of, you know, literally kill the Tumbler in that, but they wanted some piece of it to survive. Something I had never noticed before, and I felt like an idiot. Like, I've seen that movie a bazillion times, and when we were watching it last week with the Discord, somebody pointed out that the car actually says goodbye before it explodes.
Yeah,
like, I had never noticed that. Like, I remember it saying goodbye, but it never occurred to me, oh yeah, this is like the car, because this was like, I wasn't even thinking about the whole kind of Jarvis-ness of it all. And, like, it wasn't an AI, really. So I guess that's why I wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't like Batman talked to it like it was a person. But it was kind of subtle, actually. Or it was subtle enough I never thought of it.
I mean, the way it treats that crash, when that Batmobile, when the Tumbler is crashing, it's just brutal. It hits hard. And it's so violent. The little miniature, just like, well, was it a miniature or was it the real thing? Just going through, I think it looks kind of like a miniature.
I don't know that for sure. I know they didn't use any miniatures in the first movie. Or at least I didn't.
They did for the train crash.
Oh, they did. Okay.
The train crash at the very end. They were miniatures.
But everything is practical. They never go to CG with those cars. We know that for sure.
Yeah.
I think they did a little with the Bat in a couple places in Rises, just because they had to, because it flew. But but you know about this? The Bat, they actually built like a full blown thing, and then they just drove it around on a crane, and they just took the crane out. It's amazing.
I back when they were filming, obviously it was in Pittsburgh, so they were driving around Pittsburgh with this big rig past buildings, so people were just filming with their phones on. It was all over YouTube, videos of the Bat flying, well, not flying around, but you know, being driven around on the crane. So yeah, that's such a really cool effect. And yeah, like you said, there is obviously some shots where it has to be either CG or it was some sort of model filming to have it fly, but. Yeah, it's one of the reasons why Nolan's the best is because he doesn't just make everything CGI, and it still looks real. You don't lose that realism.
Tyler, I think that's a simplification. He says the Tumbler was conceptualized when Christopher Nolan stomped on a cardboard box and painted it black, and then he told the art designer to do this with a car. I know he made his own crude model of it.
Yeah.
I don't think he stomped on a cardboard box. I don't like. I think it was a little bit. I think he did a little more than that.
That's pretty great. I like that idea, though.
Model, certainly.
This like super pretentious British man just going.
Do this with a car.
Make this.
That's great. No, the Tumbler is brilliant because when I first saw it, I hated it. And then in the context of that film, it's fantastic. And I love it now, but like it's not my definitive Batmobile because I want my Batmobile to be a car. But that Batman needs that car.
Yeah, indeed. Where do we land on? It's been years and years and years since Arkham Knight came out. Where do we land on the literal Bat tank?
I don't love it. It's fun to drive when it's not the, you know, tank missions. When I'm
battle mode, yeah.
The battle mode thing I don't care for. I don't feel the need to have to, like, buy one. Like, I don't need a model of that. I like the Arkham Asylum car a lot.
They had a really cool, like, actual at E3, whatever year that came out. E3 2014, 2015, 2014, right? July 2014. Anyway, they had an actual model of that at E3, and it looked amazing. It just in real life, that car is intimidating.
I bet. That's nuts.
Yeah, like if I were a criminal, I would think twice about coming around. But like, I've seen a lot of these Batmobiles in real life, like most of them. I guess pretty much all of them except for the Snyder one. And that was the first one that I would actually be frightened of coming at me and or like seeing Batman drive by. Not that the other ones aren't like intimidating, but there's just something about that other Batmobile that is just scary.
So people in the comments are talking about commercials for Batmobile, so we're gonna watch one. Why not?
Let's do it.
Now I can't pump the sound to you, Dan. So you'd have to turn on the video and watch a couple seconds behind, or just not not listen to it. But anyway, people were talking about the OnStar commercials, which Alfred Goff came back for, which were great, and the people were also talking about the
Alfred Goff,
Michael Goff. Yeah, thank you. Did I say Alfred Goff? And then. Alfred Goff was one half of the team that created Smallville, and I always make that mistake. Anyway,
I know, yeah, it's always confusing whenever I see that.
I would screw that up. Anyway, but we're gonna watch the Diet Coke commercial that was in front of Batman '89 with Alfred Goff or with Michael Goff, because I love it. So here we go. Here's the Diet Coke commercial.
And Bruce Keaton.
Yes.
Hello. Gotham Corner Store.
Stately Wayne Man.
We seem to be down to our last Diet
Our last Diet Coke. I don't like watching '89 without watching this.
A gentleman is on his way to pick some up. Just look for a black car. No, this black car will be rather difficult to miss.
It's so classy, right?
Anyway,
Yeah.
the gentleman is usually
So stately.
quite a rush.
Just for the taste of it, Diet Coke.
I like the cape.
I always thought that cape was kind of silly though, because the cape is on the can. It's like connected to the can, or is it behind it? I can't tell. It looks like it's actually connected to the can.
Yeah, it's like it's connected to the top, for sure. The top rim. That just reminded me of the what was it, McDonald's or Burger? I think it was McDonald's, right? The scene that is literally in the movie. For Batman and Robin, I think.
Yeah.
The one where I'll get drive through.
Mm-hmm.
No, I guess that was Forever, right?
That's Forever. That's the beginning of Forever. Yeah.
I just remember those commercials.
The tie-in for that was McDonald's, right? Because it had the glasses.
Yeah.
I still have those, and they're awesome. They made more of the stuff for fast food places back then was made to last. I see those everywhere, all the time at like flea markets and stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I remember. I either saw them at your place when I was there, or we saw them at the flea market. Were you selling some, or was your dad selling some, or maybe we saw some at a different...
I had a couple in my booth. Mm-hmm.
That's what.
You were here,
so I remember.
That's right. I had the Riddler one, I think. The Riddler one or the Robin one won. Tyler, overall, you're right. In Batman and Robin, it's I'll cancel the pizzas. That's what it is.
I'll cancel the pizzas, sir.
You know, I think this is, and we're well over an hour in already, Dan. It's like an hour 15. I think this is a really good segue to actually get into today's review, because White Knight goes to a whole bunch of Screen Batman stuff, and I mean, it goes to a bunch of comic stuff too, but it's such an amalgamation of everything. And one of the things, this is a weird place to start, but I want to mention this because I wanted to talk about this anyway, Dan. One of the things it does is it takes that big plot point of Alfred dying from Batman and Robin and makes it a big plot point in the book. And he's dying of the same thing. It's McGregor syndrome.
Yep,
which
McGregor syndrome.
It is not the first thing to bring that back. Arrow did it first and blew my mind when it did it. I don't know if you know about this, but Clock King is dying of McGregor syndrome in the Clock King episode in Arrow, and I thought that was freaking great. I thought that was so cool that they thought of that, and that's what he's dying of. But in White Knight, it's neat because not only, it's not just Alfred is dying and they cutely put in McGregor syndrome, they also connected it to Mr. Freeze again, and they used that as a way to get Mr. Freeze in the story, which is thematically a really interesting thing. All the stuff with the Waynes with Mr. Freeze is really interesting. So we'll talk about all of that stuff, but I thought this was a good segue because of all things, one of the big things that it uses a huge plot point is from Batman and Robin.
Yeah, this White Knight had 800 references to everything. Like it was such a just love letter to Batman. It was deconstructing Batman on top of also paying homage to so much. And also, I feel like it inspired a lot of different things too. Like that Harley Quinn series takes some notes from this run. Definitely, I'm not sure if it echoes in other runs as well, but I definitely felt like the whole Batman love relationship, or not Batman and Joker loving each other, or like Joker being obsessed with Batman so much that it pushes Harley away.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't think of that. I mean, I think that does come up in other things. I don't know if for sure that show is looking at this, but it's looking at, but it might have been thinking of that because of this, considering other really recent things that show is borrowing from, because the whole Hell Yeah thing with Kite Man is just a couple of years old.
Hell yeah.
With Tom King, I guess 4 years old now. Weird how long we've been into Rebirth and past Rebirth now. But anyway, yeah, it is yet another Batman deconstruction. Although I would say it's more, but like the most creative and cleverest of them I've read in a long time. It makes a lot of this kind of fresh and new again. Because I thought I was done with stories about not totally the yin yang tete-a-tete with Batman Joker. That's usually going to be there in a Batman story. But the idea that Batman might be just as bad as the Joker, or that he's so obsessed with the Joker that he is actually causing a lot more harm than good, and he doesn't realize, he can't see that. I've just seen that 1,000 times, and we're constantly acting like it's the first time it's ever been done. This book starts off on the right foot because it's not pretending like it's the first time it's ever been done. It is well aware, in my opinion, of that. I think it's really self-aware that a lot of the ideas that it's taking is recycling them, putting them in a blender, and then coming out into something brand spanking new with a completely different tone and an atmosphere than I've really ever seen before with Batman. Yeah, it's really impressive and super ambitious, this book. Before we get into all of that stuff, why don't we go ahead and set this up for people that have not read this book? This is complex. There's a lot here, and I don't know how we're going to do this in half an hour or so, but we're going to try. But this is written and drawn by Sean Murphy, whose art is spectacular. I love him. I don't know if I've seen him write anything before, but in what little I've looked at with him before, I've liked his art, and it's really cool to see him do a writer-artist thing, do a whole book by himself with, just a colorist.
Yeah, really impressed.
So, Dan, why don't you give us kind of the basic premise of this, if you would? And as always, we're going to spoil stuff on this. We're not going to try to do a total non-spoiler thing, because the most interesting things to talk about with this are going to require spoilers. I kind of want to just dive right into it. So, and I always do that on the Comic Vault anyway, so we'll treat this like a vault like we usually do. So if people don't want us to spoil the ending of this, and what happens with with Batman and the Joker in this, you might want to go ahead and turn this off now, and then come back and watch it after you've read this. This is available on DC Universe digital if you want to read it that way and you don't want to have to buy it. There is also a sequel which we've not read yet, so we won't be able to speak to that. And I have a lot of questions with the end, and I'm wondering where things are going, and I've not read the sequel yet. So if you have read that, please don't spoil it for us. Also, just because of my setup right here, I'm probably not going to be looking at comments much through this. So Dan, if you see any comments that you want to address, take care of that for me, because I'm not going to be able to look at them without jumping away from my panels here that I'm trying to show us while we're reviewing this. But anyway,
for once I actually took notes too, so I have notes to refer to.
I wish I'd done that. Yeah, go ahead.
So the basic premise of this is, as we can see here at the very beginning, Joker's leading Batman on a bit of a chase, and Batman causes collateral damage to buildings, to people. He's just Batman locked on the Joker. He is being that kind of laser sight, brutal Batman. He is trying to go for the Joker, and he's just tired and upset, and ends up brutally beating the Joker and forcing. Well, he chases him to this pill factory, with the GCP surrounding it, Batman in there, surrounded by Commissioner Gordon and the other GCPD officers, and he's beating Joker. He catches Joker, he's beating him to a pulp. He forces pills down his throat, He is just being super brutal. And what ends up happening is the pills that are forced down Joker's throat ends up changing him and making him a bit more normal. He's kind of realizing that how monstrous he became when he was the Joker, and now he's seeing himself as, again, Jack Napier. He's actually reverting back to a reasonable person, and he sees I love that shot so much. He sees he's seeing Batman more for who he really is, and how how the Joker destroyed Gotham, but also how Batman is responsible for a lot of that destruction as well. And
the ways in which good and bad, they're both weirdly kind of the same person. And I think Murphy makes a really good case for that.
Absolutely. You know, Joker is brutal and insane, but on top of that, so is Batman. Batman is so laser focused on what he's made his mission that he doesn't really care about the collateral damage that he's causing throughout Gotham.
Yeah, this is the completely reckless Batman that we kind of get to in All-Star with Morrison, or not Morrison, excuse me. That's not fair to Morrison. With Miller, but this is, and I think this is kind of, because again, it's putting so many different things in a blender. I think it's also taking that and being self-aware about it and saying, what if Batman went that far, but he wasn't so far, you know, on the edge that you could maybe draw him back a little bit. There's also maybe some BVS Batman in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Well, no, there are definitely elements of BBS Batman. I mean, Robin literally calls him out on his, what's the phrase? He is an absolutionist, he's just like looking at like absolutism. He is just looking at things as an absolute, but he's also a bit clouded, because as we talked about earlier, Alfred's sick. He's dying. He is working with Freeze on, a cure for McGregor syndrome. He's helping Freeze, and in turn, Freeze is helping him. And so he's kind of lost some objectivity, because he's just completely lost without Alfred's guidance. He's ignoring Barbara and Robin. He's not listening to either of them. Joker is beginning to make a point. Like, Joker sues GCPD because an unknown person in the beginning has filmed Batman brutally beating and forcing the pills down the Joker's throat. Yeah. So Joker is suing GCPD for his freedom, and also beginning to use that as a jumping off point to start turning Gotham against Batman. In the sense of he's trying to actually kind of rebuild Gotham without a Batman and without a Joker, without him being Joker. He's taken on the name Jack Napier again. He's not going by Joker. Yeah, he's actually active. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, he's actively fighting against. He's afraid to become Joker again. He's actually taking these pills that Batman forced down his throat. Literally made him have a taste of his own medicine. And he's actually bettering himself by taking this medication and keeping the Joker at bay.
Yeah, there are maybe a couple of stories that do kind of a fake out like this, where or that where it is a fake out but it's not here, where you think for a minute that maybe there's a chance that the Joker or some other villain, finally being reformed, and it turns out that it's all a ruse. And in this particular case, I think we're supposed to be suspicious of that at the beginning. But the more we see Joker by himself, and particularly in scenes with Harley Quinn, who, by the way, he proposes to and will marry at the end, you start to realize that he's actually completely sincere. This is not the Penguin from Batman Returns, where he's running for mayor and pretending like he's altruistic and like he wants to help the city, but really he has this big scary plan in the background. One of the reasons that you are suspicious at the beginning is not just because, well, it's the Joker, and how do you humanize the Joker? Like, this is one of those concepts that shouldn't work but does. It maybe turns the Joker into something that some fans don't care for. I can see some people not liking the story just because they don't care for the Jack Napier of it all, right? That, like, he has a definitive backstory. We know who he is at the beginning. He's got a name already. There's not really anything left to the imagination. I can see people having a problem with that. I don't think you can tell this story without doing it this way. And again, there's so many different elements it takes from different places. So that's the Batman 89 of it all, where you have a Joker that probably, we're not really told, but probably used to be a mob boss type and then became the Joker at some point. We don't really actually get into his backstory. We just know his name is Jack Napier. Unless that's a name he makes up when he turns normal. I guess that's possible because we're not really told, but I think his real name is Jack Napier. I think there was at some point a Jack Napier. But you're led to wonder if it's going to turn out that it's all a ruse and he's going to get the last laugh at the end. This story easily could have gone that way, right? Where he convinces everybody, and this is where I thought it was going at the beginning, Dan. Joker convinces everybody that he has reformed and that he's not crazy anymore and that Batman is the real problem and that Batman is the real Joker of the city and Joker was just a victim and he was completely misunderstood. There's a question through this story even as to how much of a murderer he is. How many people has he really actually killed and how much of it is kind of touted up because of Batman? How much of that is blown out of proportion? And the big reason that you wonder if it might all be a ruse is because he really is breaking the law while he's doing all of this. Like, Jack Napier does, it turns out, legitimately care about the city, but just like Batman, doesn't think that he can solve these problems by going with the letter of the law. What sets Batman and Joker apart from the police is that they can get away with things that the police can't, and the ends to some degree maybe justify the means. Or, the ends maybe to some degree justify the means. So you can't just, go with the letter of the law, especially if there's corruption, and expect to change anything. And Batman understands that, but takes it too far. And Joker understands that, and there's a question of A, whether he's taking it too far, and B, if he actually has more sinister motives. And the big surprise of the whole book is that it turns out he doesn't have sinister motives at all, and that the Joker is actually a secondary personality that is under his mind and right under the skin. Where have we heard this before? Does this ring any bells, like, really recently? From something you and I just talked about, Dan? It's a little bit of the Batman Clayface again.
Yeah.
And it's also, of course, a little bit of Two-Face. And I think, and that's the one thing where I'm not 100% sure exactly how I feel about it. I think that's probably the best way to tell this story, but the idea that the Joker and Jack Napier are two separate entities and that it's another multiple personality thing is maybe a little too easy, but I'm not totally sure how you do it. Like, I have that question through this of whether it was always multiple personalities or if the pills separated what was good about the Joker and like what goodness was left in the man and the psychotic personality that had taken hold, and if it's maybe, I don't go to this a lot with stuff, but is maybe like a Star Trek Enemy Within thing where there's actually like a separation of those two things, and now it is multiple personalities, but it wasn't before. If that's what it's supposed to be, I like it better, but I don't really care for the idea that it always was. I think that's a hard pill to swallow.
I feel like this is something that was kind of brought out by the pills, but I loved the visual idea of, like, there's sometimes we're just constantly reminded that the Joker is just beneath the skin. Yes. We see the green and purple eyes multiple times throughout the run, and I didn't really. This kind of creates that multiple personalities thing. I don't feel like it was always there.
It's better if it wasn't always there.
I don't feel like that's the case.
I also have a hard time, but we're going to have to give this away right now to talk about it. It will turn out at the end, and I think it tracks. I think it works fine. It's not too retroactive, that Harley Quinn is actually responsible for the pills. That she set all this in motion, and a lot of this was her idea in trying to bring out Jack Napier. Because, why do they both have to be called Jack? Because, importantly... This is the traditional Harley Quinn who is not a sadist. And we'll talk about the whole Harley Quinn thing, because there is a statement being made in this book about modern Harley Quinn, and I freaking love it. Because I agree with it. I will come right out and say that. I love it because I'm with him on it. But I also think it's really clever, however you feel about modern Harley Quinn. And also, she's made... as sympathetic as she possibly could be. Like, we're throwing the idea of modern Harley Quinn under the bus, but the character in this book is interesting. And that's a real testament to the quality of this book. There's a lot of stuff... Sorry, I'm talking all over the place, but there's some political stuff in this book that's like that too, where like it doesn't feel like it's preaching politics at you. It's just throwing something at you that is happening and letting you kind of decide what part of the line you want to jump on, which I really respect it for. It does the same thing with modern Harley Quinn, but the difference with politics is I couldn't begin to tell you his politics when he's talking about like virtue signaling and gatekeeping and all of that. Like Jack is using all of that stuff as a way to fight Batman and fight the police department. I don't know where the man lies on those politics. I do know where he lies on modern Harley Quinn. He hates her and he wants her to die because he has original Harley Quinn stab her at the end, and it's the best. But anyway, at the end of this, yeah, go ahead.
There's also like early on because I got so confused. I'm like, there are two Harley Quinns. Early on, awesome. Joker or Jack at this point. Jack goes back to Harley Quinn, who is the cheerleader looking Harley Quinn, and wanting to get her back. He proposes to her, and she just doesn't buy it. She wants him to be Joker again. She doesn't like this Jack character, and is like trying to force makeup onto him, and then another Harley Quinn steps in her classic Harley Quinn outfit, a la the animated series,
and punches her out. And it's literally old Harley Quinn beating the crap out of new Harley Quinn, because new Harley Quinn sucks and is a completely different character. It's fantastic.
And she says, like, great outfit, what a great step towards feminism or something like that, or great step for feminism. And stings around that. But I thought that was very interesting. The fact, well, also the
somebody way later calls her like a Hot Topic reject or something too. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Because the way that works out in the story is that Joker, when he was the Joker, the real Harley Quinn left him. And he was just he did not care at all in the first place to even notice that eventually he somehow picked up a new Harley Quinn. He was robbing a bank and came across this bank teller, and she just played along because he was calling her Harley. And so she just ended up kind of developing Stockholm syndrome and just became Harley for him. And so he never even noticed that there were different Harleys when he was the Joker.
And what's important to note is that one of these characters was mentally disturbed in the first place, and the other one, the original Harley, wasn't. And Joker kind of impressed her, and the idea here, and I feel like this is a very Paul Dini thing. I think Dini would approve of this edition, is that she sees something in him that nobody else does, and that she actually thinks that there's goodness underneath him, and she likes him. She keeps saying, despite his homicidal tendencies, despite the insanity and the psychopathy, and she thinks that there's actually a good man in there that can help the city. And believes, like the Joker does, but in less of a twisted way, that the Joker and Batman are both necessary, and that Joker needs to be there to challenge Batman. Or at least that's Joker's whole thing. I think maybe she gets to a point where she doesn't actually believe in the necessity of Batman so much as she thinks that there is greatness in the Joker, and not in that he can murder a lot of people and take over the city, but in that he can save the city because he's brilliant, he's passionate, and there's actually maybe something underneath the surface. And this idea, I was going to wait to talk about this later, but since you broke that down, we can do it now. This idea that you would literalize the modern Harley Quinn, the more Deadpool-y Harley Quinn, and that the reason she loves the Joker is superficial, is just because he's insane and crazy, is just a stroke of genius. I love it. I think it's so good, and this is the kind of thing that you can do in a non-canonical Batman story. This is going its own way. It's doing its own thing. To back off everything for just a second, I'll say that this reads, Dan, to me like almost like an alternative sort of Telltale type story, or a
Oh, yeah.
like Earth 1 kind of story. Like, and it reads more like a Telltale game to me than anything, especially with how twisty and turny it gets and how unpredictable it is. I could even see the Joker from Telltale turning into this Jack Napier. Like, it's not that far away from that. Like, they are different things, but like I could almost see doing this in that, or this being the initial thing they do. Like, and it also feels almost like a Marvel The End kind of story. Particularly with the ending of this, where Batman is trying to give up being Batman, or at least he's going to tell everybody his secret identity. Where we get, you know, kind of the end of the Joker, but maybe not, and kind of the end of Batman, but maybe not. But as I'm reading it, before I know the ending, I keep thinking, like, this reads like Batman the End. Like, if you did a definitive Batman ending, maybe that's the story I'm reading. And then when you get to the end, it's ambiguous, and it won't be when I read the sequel, but the whole time I was reading this, Dan, I felt like I was reading, like, the last Batman story.
Well, it's firing on all cylinders. Like, it is a Batman story. It's a Joker story. It's a Harley Quinn story. It's a Bat family story. It's really tackling all these different relationships between all these different characters. Jim Gordon, the GCPD, they break it down in a way that I haven't really seen. I mean, I'm not super knowledgeable with all the comics, but the way they break down the relationship between, like, the mayor and GCPD and Batman, and supposedly, like, this is a Batman who's been doing this for decades, hence why he has all the cars. He has every single car from every iteration. Yeah, because this is supposed to be the culmination of everything Batman. And you notice, and I think the cars are supposed to represent this. That's why it's so cool we did Batmobiles this episode, because the cars are really representative of the history of Batman. You just see it get... Yeah.
And we, over the years, have liked our Batman stories darker and darker and darker, to the point where he's branding people and is also a murderer, depending on what scene you're watching in BVS. And I think it's really kind of neat that the cars represent that. I also like, maybe I'm reading too far into this, but when we get the 89 car later, because we do indeed use the screen cars all over this, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And it'll take me a minute to get there. But, by the way, I showed a panel earlier and left it on the screen for a long time because I hadn't realized it. We foreshadow that by showing all the cars in the cave in, like, the second issue. I didn't remember that. That was really cool.
So I've been, like, throughout that was in issue 3, I think.
Was it? Okay.
I took a bunch of, in my notes, I took a bunch of screen caps of shots that I specifically liked, and that was one of them. Like, it has the giant penny, it has the dinosaur, it has the bat boat, the bat bike, like the bat
and a lot
pod,
of things do that,
lights,
but it had all the screen cars, which more and more we're doing. Cool. But like, and the Batmobile documentary brought this up too. Like, in Hush, you get that big shot where it's got all the screen cars, and I don't know if that had been done before. And then in more recent years, you'll see that shot quite a bit, and we'll even go to, like, Batman Beyond, and you'll see suits and cars from all different eras. What I had not really seen before, and maybe I'm wrong about this, maybe there's other stuff that does, but me personally, I didn't remember it. If I've read it, I didn't remember ever using them. Where, like, we actually pull those cars out of the Batcave and do stuff with them. And when the 89 car came out, I stared at this page for 2 straight minutes. I couldn't even believe we were doing it. I was like, that is the coolest thing. And then, later on, we're going to get all the cars out, and it's going to be just like that shot at the end of that documentary down the highway. And I was like, how is this going on? And how did I get lucky enough to do all of this in one show for Batmosphere? There was also that giddiness about it. I like that Nightwing steals the 89 car when he does, because the car that Batman's been driving is, like I said earlier, kind of an amalgamation of a bunch of different cars, and it's cool. I don't love it, but I don't think it's supposed to be like a great Batmobile. I think it's supposed to again kind of foreshadow this. Like, we're gonna take that car apart and we're gonna see all the cars that inspired it. And I like using the 89 car for 2 reasons. Of course, one is, if you're going to feature one of the screen cars for multiple pages, it ought to be this one, because you're using Jack Napier and you're going to 89 a lot. But and like Jack says, wonderful toys, and, like, this guy loves Batman 89. And he also loves animated series. And there's homages to a lot of other things, but those are the 2 things he's obsessed with, because Almost Got Him has a whole page, and and you've got the, I threw a rock at him thing with Croc. Like, that's in here. But anyway, and understand, I'm I'm not just, I don't feel like I'm just being a Getty fanboy because I'm recognizing things. He's doing interesting things with them. It's really easy to throw all the homage stuff out and the fan service and try to let your story coast on it. This story doesn't need any of that stuff. It's icing on the cake. That's why it's so good. And anyway, so I'll finally get to my point, which might be a pretentious, like, taking it too far point, but I think I may be right about it. I like the notion of using the 89 car here because it's the, Burton's Batman is the one who is most walled off from the audience. He's one of the weirder Batmans. Like, you never really get into his head. He seems cold and unemotional, and he doesn't really care about the little people he might be stepping on where he's getting to where he's getting, right? Like, that guy does not feel like a real whole human being. And I like that Nightwing is using this Batmobile against a Batman who has that problem in this story.
Yeah. Yeah, and I got so confused at first when I was reading it. I was like, why is Gordon blindfolded? Oh yeah, the shot a couple
pages
ahead when they light up the
EMP?
That one, the floosh,
yes,
right at the top frame. I love that shot.
Oh, I didn't notice that. That's cool.
Yeah, and the lights with the bat signal and all the floodlights. That's another frame I took out of the screen cap of. It's just, it's such a, like, and this is 6 issues in. It's not like they're trying to cash in or like this is an earned moment that this run has. Like, by the time they it's not like they brought this out, issue 1 or 2. They really waited to bring it out, because before this point, the Joker is introducing an initiative. Like, we find out that there is literally a bat destruction fund, like the billions of dollars worth of money, which we're told early on is taxpayer money that's going towards rebuilding Gotham every single time there's a Batman related destructive event. And it's one of the big impetuses of Joker winning over Gothamites to what was he running for?
The councilman.
Some councilman, yeah. So he became the councilman, and he's liaisoning with the GCPD, trying to get them to bring vigilantes in. He wants Batman and Robin and Batgirl to be part of the GCPD. It's a very Civil War-ish kind of deal. They want them signed under the GCPD as an official, oversighted project called the GTP, I think. Yeah. The Gotham terrorism something unit. Yeah. Oppression unit, I think, is what it was. Yeah. So, and he end up, Robin and Batgirl end up part of this. Batman says no, because he's Batman, and
and they knew he would, and like you see here on this page. So they say that the vigilantes can keep their secret identities and their costumes, but they have to have a badge and they have to work with the police. So the difference is before they were working alongside them, now they have to work with them. Now they have to be like in the same cars with them and stuff. And also remember, Dan, that one of the big things is. And I love that Jack has like good points, and Gordon cannot say no to him. He says, we need to put together this task force. One thing you're not thinking about, Gordon, is Batman this whole time could have given you all of his technology. He could have given the GCPD 100 Batmobiles instead of just using all of his tech himself. And that's what he says. He says, give him 100 Batmobiles, give him Kevlar vests, give him a whole bunch of utility belts. Why don't all of us have this stuff? It's fun because this book is actually a really fun read, and it could have been so heavy and oppressive and no fun at all to read. And it's very political, but it's also very comic book. And when people and sometimes folks in comments will say, well, Cap, why don't you like it when comics are political? I love it when they're political like this, because this is not trying to tell me how to think, and it's also not like in an uncreative way bringing modern current events that won't matter next week into comic books. This is blending modern politics into this story, but in a very comic booky way, right? Like,
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's about, you know, like the Trump of it all. It feels like it's about what people are dealing with now in a Batman allegory. And so the divisiveness of the country is in Gotham. It's not about the country, it's about this city. And so it's done in a real tasteful way, it's done in a real creative way, and it's super comic booky. So I guess the point I'm trying to make, Dan, is it is realistic in its way, in that, like, you know, how does the city deal with the collateral damage? Well, of course, they got to pay for it somehow. How are the cops not wondering why Batman won't give them technology? These are all things that in the real world would come up, and the reason they don't is because you have to tell ongoing stories. It's because it's serialized, and we have to keep a status quo, stable. And that's why you have to do this in a story that is not in status quo. That's why you have to take it away and do your own thing with it. But at the same time, it's also not realistic at all. It's so comic booky. Like, we just have to suspend our disbelief and deal with the fact that the Joker comes out in all of his like white-faced and green-haired glory whenever he takes over Jack Napier's body again. Does it make sense? No. Do I care? No. Of course not. It's fantastic. I love that. Yeah. He is completely having his cake and eating it too on believability, and it's just perfect. I love that about it.
Yeah, like you said, it's realistic, but it's heightened. It's timely, but it's not preachy. It is very timely in some aspects of it.
I love how you always do this. You always break my points down in, like, 16 words or less, where it's like, I took 5 minutes to make that point, and if I just said what you'd said, we could have moved on already.
Well, I would have interjected, but you were on a roll.
Thanks,
there's some stuff in there.
You got the brevity, man.
It's very timely. It's dealing with economic status of Gothamites and
class warfare.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of really, really current themes. But it's also, like you said, literally Joker is bursting out of himself at the end of this comic. And they make a point earlier on talking about, like, put on the makeup. Like, it's literally, they're saying about makeup, but then he's just literally turning into green hair and white-faced Joker. So it's not... I mean, Joker literally drives into a wall and blows up, but then he's absolutely fine and unscathed moments later.
He just fell in the water, apparently, and then Batman goes in and saves him. And, that's a little easy, but the story is so good, I didn't care in that moment. I do. It's kind of I'm not saying this is a perfect story, but it gets away with that stuff more because it's so thoughtful. It's so thought-provoking otherwise. Man.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's killer.
It is maintaining that the comic book of it all. Like, it is not meant to be... Yes,
and this is a comic book. This story has to be told in this medium. Don't adapt this. It doesn't need it.
Well, that's... I was thinking about that, like, throughout. I was like, man, this would make a good movie. This would make a good thing. But then as it was going, I'm like, no, I don't think you could really do this.
You could take elements of it, I guess, but I wouldn't want to see it totally unless you made it into a video game or something. I mean, like, maybe there's a couple mediums it would be okay for, but you would obviously you'd have to change certain things, but this is where Jack is going to take Batman to Arkham, and at the point that happens, I as a reader am thinking, he maybe deserves to go there.
For sure.
This book is fantastic at making Batman completely unsympathetic and then winning me over on Batman again at the end. If you read just the first issue of this, you might hate Batman and you may not want to read on. I bet if my wife read this, she'd read the first issue and go, I'm not going to read any more of that. You got to have the whole package, and he's taking risks that he's not going to hold your attention and keep you on board. I just think that the storytelling is so good and the characterizations are so interesting that I can't help but continue to read on. But it will be counter to your sensibilities potentially at the beginning, and then maybe win you over again at the end. On both Batman and the Joker, he really, like I said earlier, that whole idea that Batman and the Joker are the same in this work. I don't mean that they always are, but this version, he's totally right about it.
From what you're saying about, like, the first issue, I think the hook of it is so fantastic. We see the Batmobile driving up to Arkham. We think that Batman is going to see the Joker, but then we reveal that it is Joker going to see Batman,
Yeah,
who
that's
is
true.
locked up in Arkham. And because I thought, oh, Batman's going to Arkham, he's going to see the it already turns it on its head right off the bat.
Yeah, and that opening is reminiscent of Killing Joke. They're trying to subvert your expectations because it opens like Killing Joke does.
Yeah, exactly. And so and then they do a year earlier skip back. So I think I was hooked from that point on.
Well, so
like,
I'll say that I'm sick of those, but this does it better than some other things do. I complain about that all the time. Comics do that way too much. It's become kind of a formula with comics. This doesn't do too much formulaic stuff, which is nice. There aren't a lot of like end of an issue. There's a big character reveal. I mean, I guess like the issue right before the one we're looking at here has the character reveal of Jack turned into the Joker for a second. It's really funny. The very next issue, the first page is like, "I'm the Joker." No, I'm not. And he like pulls it back in, and it's Jack again. Again, that should annoy me, but it's funny. I kind of enjoyed that because then there's that constant ticking time bomb of when is he going to pop back out again, and then when he does, he doesn't ruin everything. The Joker is actually like half helpful because there's that question of whether or not they are kind of the same guy. So like there's always Joker like underneath Jack, but then there's also Jack underneath Joker, and so and you have to have that because otherwise you wouldn't buy that Harley Quinn saw something in him. Yeah.
Well, in the story, the scorned Harley Quinn ends up becoming what she refers to herself as Neo Joker.
Which, by the way, hold on. I love that because modern Harley Quinn is absolutely that. She's Neo Joker. Nobody cares about the Joker anymore. They care about Harley Quinn. She's kind of taken over, and she's like that Suicide Squad thing. She's supposed to be more deranged and psychotic and violent and scarier than the Joker. Like, no, that's what she is. Modern Harley Quinn is Neo Joker, and he just names her that. Anyway, everything about all the anti-current Harley Quinn stuff is so good. I love it.
Well, and then at the end, I don't think it would have worked out so well. Like you said, you kind of worried that once Joker does appear, that he's going to ruin everything. But he is so focused on once he does reappear that there is somebody who is impersonating me. There is only one Joker. Truce with you, Batman, for now, and then we'll take care of this. He just wants to beat the crap out of Harley Quinn, who's pretending to be this new Joker.
Yeah, it's not like you can trust him.
There can only be one.
It's not like something is a good guy. That could have got sappy real quick.
Oh, yeah. But you buy into, like, they had a vested interest in taking her down. Obviously, he could have betrayed them at any point, but...
So there are a few kind of changes to standard Batman stuff that we should talk about in order to make the story work, and it's very reminiscent of the Arkham games, where more or less you're looking at a mythology that you recognize. So that makes it a little bit less like Telltale and a little bit more like Arkham, right? Where like it's because Arkham is like Telltale is like total reinventions of characters, and this is more or less what you're familiar with and you know. I just think the story beats happen like they do in Telltale. I think the pacing of it is a lot like those games. But then and there are even places where it makes you think that maybe there's a reinvention of a character, but it actually is the same character you always knew, like Freeze, who for a minute we think is a Nazi, and then it turns out it was his dad, and his dad made the freeze gun. And I gotta say, I'm a little bit tired of doing that. That's the Gotham TV show thing. And by the way, I think they kind of got that from Gotham, where like Mr. Freeze's dad makes the gun, and then Mr. Freeze, has it later. But so like I'm kind of sick of like parents in prequel-y things doing all the cool stuff and then their kids just inherit it. We kind of did that with this, but at least this Victor Freeze is still a scientific genius, but it's all about medical stuff. And so he worked with, if you haven't read the story, he worked with Thomas Wayne in order to develop his father, who was a Nazi sympathizer, and made the freeze gun for the Nazis in order to take that technology and use it for medical benefits, which is why he's able to freeze his wife, Nora, and he's still trying to fix her, and he actually does that in this. So she survives, but Alfred doesn't. So it's the flip of what happens in Batman and Robin. Yeah. And anyway, so you get a lot of things like that where it's sort of like the Arkham games where it's what you remember, but then it turns out there's something a little bit where it's almost like an alternate universe that's just slightly different, and it just goes down a little bit of a different path. And one of those things is how Jason Todd is handled, which we really need to talk about, because in this you get very very early the standard, okay, Joker seems to have killed Jason, and it's because we think he's jealous of Jason's relationship with Batman, and that's the place where Harley Quinn decides he's gone too far. It was all fun and games until he beat the crap out of a kid, and she's like, no, you can't, which makes you wonder if he's ever murdered anybody before that, because that's where it's going too far for her. I wondered about that. I wonder if the Joker's not a murderer until Jason Todd.
I don't know how he'd be able to be released. Obviously he was going to sue GCPD for the brutality and standing by as Batman beat him up and all that stuff, and he couldn't. I don't think he is, but I don't.
Oh, you mean at all? Even after that, you're saying this Joker can't actually have murdered anyone, or there's no way they would let that guy free, even under an insanity plea.
Yeah, I mean, all we see him do as Joker in this story, other than have kidnapped and tortured Robin, is that he robbed a bank. So
and that's where he gets second Harley Quinn. That's where he gets Neo Joker Harley Quinn. Yeah.
And he's not killing anybody during that, and he tends to like kidnapping and robbing, apparently.
No, and remember, part of the reason she was taken by him, or at least kind of confused and interested in him, we're talking about the second Harley Quinn, is that he didn't do anything to her. She says the only time he did, she takes him with her, or she takes her with him, and she doesn't seem to think she can leave, but the only time that he touches her is to fix her wounds.
He's sweet on her, because she bandages her up.
And he thinks that she's actually Harley Quinn, which means his relationship with the original Harley Quinn must be less abusive than it usually is. That must have been different.
Definitely the vibe I got. He seemed sweet on Harley.
So that's changed a bit, and I guess has to be for the sake of this story. But besides the fact that that's used, and it's still a mentally abusive relationship, I guess. But despite the fact that has changed, the spirit of that relationship more or less is still kind of there, or at least of both of those characters individually. Is still kind of there. But anyway, no, that's a good point. Maybe he can't have murdered anybody. But what we find out, so the big differences with Jason Todd Robin in this are, Jason Todd comes before Dick Grayson. That's never been done to my knowledge. And I thought that was an interesting choice, because Dick says he was Robin before me. And then, do you not remember that?
I didn't. It didn't really place that way for me when I read it, but I don't know. I don't remember him saying before me.
Yeah, he comes out and says that, because for a second it made me wonder if I was reading a different character. I was, when did Tim Drake come into this story? It's like, no, I'm still reading Dick. It's Dick out of the Nightwing costume talking to somebody I can't remember now, and he says, Jason was the Robin before me. And that's the catalyst where Batman starts to get even rougher with the Joker. And again, for the sake of the story, it kind of makes that escalation kind of makes sense. Maybe you can't have the history the same way that it was, in regular continuity. And then the second big thing is that Jason Todd doesn't actually die. Joker lets him go because he thinks that it will turn the knife even harder later. And that's an interesting notion, and I'm going to assume that in the second book he comes back. But I guess we'll find out when we read it. Because I kept waiting for him to show up. I figured at the end of this we'd see Jason Todd. Because he's still alive.
Interesting. That's a big thing left. And at the core of the story, I love the relationship between Harley Quinn, the original Harley Quinn, and Batman.
Yes.
Batman realizes that Harley Quinn is Joker's heart. He is her, she is his humanity. She's the only thing stopping him from going full on and murdering people. He knows that Joker is better when she is with him.
And what's great is that means that that somewhere inside him, Batman would have to admit that she's right about him.
Yeah.
Because the only way that she could hold him at bay like that is if it's true that there's something more there than just a psychopathic killer.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love Batman's little collar.
Yeah, that's great. That's straight out of Earth One, and
Yeah.
and I mean, the first place I saw Batman with a collar, I guess, would have been Gotham by Gaslight, where it's a coat instead of a cape.
Yep. I like that little integration. But yeah, no, Batman talks about how he went later on Harley when it came to Arkham sentencing, because he knew that if she was out there and Joker escaped or whatever, you know, that she would level him out and he would be less brutal than he would be off the chain. So yeah.
I also want to mention that Mr. Freeze works really well in this story thematically, because of course we have a super cold Batman, and the whole question is, how cold is he, and has he lost himself completely? So naturally, it's a good place to bring in Mr. Freeze and do something with him. All the villains are here, but we do that kind of Hush thing where, in order to, but better than Hush. Again, pieces of everything in here. We've got a mind control gimmick, plot device in Mad Hatter's mind control card, which allows at first Jack, because he's not being above board, but his heart's in the right place. So his whole idea is to get all of the villains together in order to put Batman in this situation where he can screw up and then Joker can kind of save the city. It's kind of that kind of plot. And at first he's controlling everybody, and then Neo Joker, or the other Harley Quinn, gets her hands on it and is controlling all the villains. And so you've got most of the major villains in this being controlled that way, and then the only ones that really are working of their own accord are the two Harley Quinns, Mad Hatter, and Mr. Freeze, who's working with Batman the whole time. So he's actually not a villain in this, really. Then the weirdest thing in this, I don't know if I can find the panel very readily, but the weirdest thing, you know what I'm going to say, right?
I was going to mention it.
Yeah, go ahead, because I know you know what I'm going to say. It's bizarre. I'll see if I can find the panel.
Okay, so if we're talking about the same thing, the way that Joker mind controls all the villains is by taking the Mad Hatter mind control device and controlling Clayface's mind. And what he has Clayface do once he's controlling Clayface is Clayface turns himself into powder. He puts the powder in all of the drinks that the villains drink, and then he controls their minds through Clayface controlling their, like, being within their system. So I did not know this is how Clayface worked, where Clayface is literally a body of clay, but he has a physical brain.
And the card goes in the brain. He's got a brain and stem and eyeballs. It's that RoboCop 2 thing. I can't find it right away.
There's multiple frames towards the end.
But I was going toward the end and it wasn't there.
There's a point where Harley Quinn has it in a backpack.
Yes,
Batman's.
I can't find it right away. You'll take our word for it. It's weird.
It is so strange.
Yeah, it's super bizarre.
That I did not know that Clayface had any physical part of his body, like a brain and eyeballs, and
no,
it was weird.
It's ultra bizarre.
Yeah.
So as far as Batmobiles go, like we said earlier, we get to see a bunch of them all at the end with all of the because like the police have Batmobiles, and then we just go get all the old ones and we bring them all out, and that is just a fun kind of, I guess, fan service, fanboy kind of moment to get to see all those Batmobiles. But I think there is kind of a point being made there, because this is again supposed to be such a culmination of Batman history, but it's like all of the different facets of Batman coming together, and at that point he's starting to find himself again and realize that he has gone too far. Maybe he is the villain of the story, right? In a weird way, this is the serious version of the plot from the Lego Batman movie. It opens the same way.
Early on, because this was after Lego Batman, so I thought maybe this like served as inspiration.
Also even be an influence on this book. I don't think it's going too far to say that.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the opposite, that this inspired the Lego Batman movie. Then I saw when it came out, and I was like, oh, wait, no, this had to have been inspired by Lego Batman.
Or maybe they came out too close to the same time for it to have been.
Two. One more.
What?
Nope, the Clayface brain. It was there. It is.
There it is.
Right there.
Yeah, at the bottom there. Yeah. Oh, isn't that weird?
It's a tongue.
Yeah, it had a tongue too, and it shows you the tongue in the first time you see it, because it's like a big panel. You're like, this is disgusting. It's so weird.
And he's just like, oh. Tyler says brain face. I like that.
Yes. There's also There's also a cool bit, I was trying to find it, where somebody says, this is why we use the tumbler, and then they do the jump. They do the tumbler. Like, not only do we have the cars from the movies, but they do the stuff they do in the movies.
Well, he's literally flying on rooftops in the very beginning.
Yes, you remember that?
He's
and I was like,
on rooftops.
And then there's the Batpod. No, it's crazy how much of a culmination of everything this is. But again, it's not just fan service. It tells a real distinct story that goes its own way, and it's very tight, and it's really cohesive, and wonderful setups and payoffs. Alfred has a letter at the beginning that naturally Batman's going to read at the end. He's going to read it to before he dies. Batman's going to read it to the Bat family. He doesn't read it until he finds himself again, and he kind of has already been able to, at least to some degree, move past Alfred's death, so he doesn't read it until that happens. That was nice and touching. The letter is a little silly in that it predicts everything that's happening in that scene, where it's like,
he knew that Bruce wouldn't be able to read it by himself, and he waited quite a long time.
And he's like, I'm sure you waited a long time, and I'm sure specifically only Batgirl and Nightwing are standing next to you right now, and it's a little goofy. So I have a big question, because I was wondering if I just missed it, and I went back and I looked for it, and I could not figure out what it was talking about. Maybe he was intentionally not going to do it until the second book, but I don't know if Murphy knew he was going to get a sequel to this. What is the thing about what's under the floorboard?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe that's something that would have to be. There's nothing that I know of.
Because Alfred says, P.S. There is something in my quarters. I love that he says quarters under the floorboard that you're finally ready to see. And I thought the last page would be showing us that. And it's not. And I've only read this one time, and maybe it would leap out at me on a second read, and I'm sure somebody in the comments will give me this. Maybe this is in the book. I'm also not 100% sure what Murphy's getting at with Jack found the Joker in his Arkham cell.
Yeah, that's another thing that doesn't really go by explanation.
I'm not completely sure what he's talking about. And I thought maybe I was supposed to infer it from just, the entire story by the time I got to the end, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I thought maybe it had something to do with all of the paraphernalia. I also wasn't 100% sure if the paraphernalia was really there, or if that was all in Joker's imagination, because I don't know why he would be allowed all that stuff. He's got a whole Batman collection in his cell. I don't know why he's allowed that.
It's a whole shrine.
Yeah.
He has toys and posters, and he loves the animated series.
From all the things that Murphy is obsessed with, like animated series in '89. Because he's got a poster that's the scene where Batman's like holding Joker's lapel at the end of that movie. It's all the stuff I grew up with. Yeah. I bet he's exactly my age. I bet Murphy was born in 1984.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I want to say that Batman brings it up to Harley Quinn at the end, but I don't really remember it landing on anything.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure
specifically with it.
So if anybody in the comments has a read on that, let me know, because I wasn't sure what to take from that. But again, I only read this one time and would have loved to have done a second. Blue Dragon 5 says both of those things come up in the second book. Well, that means that Murphy is super ultra obnoxiously confident.
I mean, hey, look, you got to leave him wanting more.
I mean, but that's great, because the thing is, though, without a sequel, I would cry foul on that. I would be like, nah, you got to give us that stuff. That means that he already knew he was going to get more, or was just so confident that this would sell that he was like, I'm gonna seed things. But they're seeding things.
That's stuff that didn't come up until like the last issue, though. So you would think by that point they would have known the success of it.
That's a good point. Well, yeah, but that's not usually how comic scripts are written. Well, sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. When you have such a tight miniseries like this, like an ongoing book is, still comes out 5-6 months after you wrote it, but usually, but I mean, like, you might be writing out, quite a bit. You're writing issues month to month. I would think an 8-issue miniseries, you would have all the scripts done before you put out the first issue. I would think, with something that short.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, who knows?
Maybe not. Or maybe he added to it later. I don't know. Who knows? But that stuff in the moment read to me like, even though it was so late in the game, like, okay, he's setting something up that he'll pay off by the end of this book. It didn't read like seeding things that would naturally come later. It read like stuff that was part of the story I was reading. Which means
for sure.
The sequel
it stood out.
Got to read as part of this, which means that this actually is not entirely a standalone piece. Probably. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. We didn't really talk about the circumstances around Alfred's death. I liked that it was Batman pushing himself too far. It was at the height of him pushing himself too far. This is when Joker has brainwashed all of the villains, and he's forcing Batman into the situation where he's destroying more public property. He's being extra brutal and all that stuff. He's doing. Batman's literally throwing his entire self at this thing. He's being warned by Robin and Batgirl not to do what he's doing, and he pushes it too far, gets in a horrible accident, near death. He gets in the Batmobile. It has it drive him back to I think it was the Wayne, whatever building he had. I don't think it was the mansion, but wherever he had Alfred, and was trying to patch himself back up.
Because I don't think he knows that Mr. Freeze knows his identity, but he does.
Yeah.
So he has him somewhere else.
Yeah. So wherever he has Alfred, and so he ends up collapsing, trying to patch himself up, and Alfred takes himself off of the freeze tech and patches Batman into it, patches Bruce into it, and essentially sacrifices himself to save Bruce's life. And I thought that was sweet, and I was just like, and it just hard cuts to his casket, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's so much better. I honestly had forgotten that they did it that way. That is so much better than he just dies of a disease.
Yeah.
No, I forgot because because Freeze says he did it without hesitation.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just speaks to, he knows that because Bruce, Alfred was one of the reasons why Bruce was pushing it so far, was why he was lashing out so strongly. And Batman even says he enjoys being brutal.
He says that right at the end, and that's why he tells Gordon in the last page that he needs to stop being Batman. And Gordon's like, "Well, the city needs you. You have to continue," which is really impressive. That Murphy gets us to that place, and I buy it, because just 2 issues ago he had Gordon actively going after Batman and trying to arrest him. And yet somehow at the end I buy that Gordon's like, no, you're still part of the internal workings of all of this. The book makes a really good case for Batman has become either too much of the problem or the problem, but also that he's so much a part of the infrastructure, and that he has still done a lot of good too, that it's more complicated than just he needs to hang it up or he needs to join the police department, because both sides are right about this. Jack is right that he's taking things too far because his heart's not in the right place, but the police department is right, or at least Gordon is right initially before Batman does go insanely too far, when he says, but there are things Batman can do that we can't. And maybe the law isn't enough. And there also is still enough corruption that you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
Because there's the whole thing about because also there's political corruption and business corruption in this, and there's all that talk about I love that scene where Bruce Wayne is faced with a billionaire who breaks down for him the way he's been taking advantage of Batman's collateral damage and how he makes money on it. And Bruce just
rebuilding,
punches him in the face.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
Just losing. Everybody at the party's just like, what's his deal?
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, he's gloating about how he's made so much bank off of rebuilding sections of Gotham that have been destroyed, and yeah, and he had just gotten some new muscle because of the whole Jack Napier thing. He's worried about being called out as one of the gatekeepers of, endorsing Batman, well, GCPD and all that stuff. Or the establishment. But yes, I love it. He knocks both of them out.
Of course, there's some truth to that, and I also like that we don't reveal until the end that that Bruce Wayne himself has been refunding the Batman fund.
Yeah, and that's not, because they make a big deal about it being like, oh, taxpayer money is what's been paying for, the taxpayers have been paying for all the destruction that Batman's caused. But in the end, we are told that, it's Bruce who's been paying off that fund the entire time, and it really hasn't been the people of Gotham who have been footing that bill. Now, I don't know why you didn't just come out and say that.
maybe that is. I think just so that we could get that reveal at the end. So that's fair. But what's funny about that, of course, is Bruce Wayne has to be a trillionaire, not a billionaire at that point, because he's paying back a $3 billion fund on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
So there is that. But anyway, let's go to the comments. There's a few questions here about this book. A lot of other things that we could talk about and we could say, but we're already well past 2 hours. Let me just say I love this. I think it's spectacular.
And it's great.
I think it's my favorite kind of. I mean, I want to say standalone, but it has a sequel. But I mean, like, out of continuity thing. Certainly since Earth 1, I think it's better than Earth 1. And I think it's the most fresh take on the Yin Yang Joker thing, and just that you could win me over at all on a sympathetic Joker is very, very impressive.
Yeah, I was invested. In Jack and Batman, and like the entire. Obviously, Batman's kind of repulsing you a lot of the time. He's pushing you away. He's pushing everybody away. But Jack brings up it's so interesting. Jack bringing up all these very. Like, he's not wrong. That's I kind of kept saying to myself, no, he's not wrong.
He's not, but he's also, and again, he's doing it for the right reasons, even if he's doing the wrong things. But he's also kind of deflecting you away from the bigger picture in places too, right? Like, a lot of this is about spin. A lot of this is taking, and that's a really big issue in politics and media and stuff right now. So it's a good thing to comment on in this context. That there's a lot of truth to what he's saying, but he's also exaggerating. He's blowing certain things out of proportion. He's not giving you all sides of an issue. And so that's how you create extremists. And that's how you get people on one side over another side instead of finding a way to bring people together. And it's pretty poignant. Without getting too political myself, it's pretty poignant. Blue Dragon 5, thoughts on the Batman Relief/Repair Fund? I guess we just talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. It's interesting. Interesting concept that's built into the infrastructure of Gotham. I thought it was because one of the things that Jack calls out early on is that the fact that the mayor's former what was it? Oh gosh, the I'm trying to think of the word. The former.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what we're talking about.
Mayor Hill, his the lawyers that he used to work for. I'm trying to think. The law firm. Jeez.
Yeah. Okay.
The law firm he used to work for was the one who wrote up the bill for the relief fund in the first place. And that whole kind of like gatekeeping thing was a big part of that. It was interesting early on to see all these kind of things put in place where it's like, oh, I didn't even really, realize that was a thing, the relief fund in the first place. But then the fact that it was all done up.
What are the ulterior motives, right? You put on your face, it's PR, it's spin. You try to make people think that you're doing this for the greater good and for the people of Gotham, but you might actually have, other political motivators. And then that's maybe a problem with just the political system in the first place. And I like I want to think that at one time that repair fund was not necessary. I want to think that the idea, or wasn't as necessary. I want to think that the idea is that Batman is causing a lot more collateral damage now because he doesn't care as much, and he doesn't even realize it. That's all internalized, or that's all not internalized. That's all subconscious, right? That it's all just. Like you said earlier, it's just him and the Joker, and like whatever I have to do in order to get him. He doesn't even realize that like buildings are falling, and like he drops a whole bridge like in like the third act of the story.
Well, that's it's being vocalized through Batgirl. Batgirl's how do you know? How'd you know that this roof was going to hold under the Batmobile? Like he just doesn't answer her. Like he's just.
In that first issue, she keeps going, "Oh, he's ignoring me again." Like I'm throwing out, like her and Nightwing both. Like I'm throwing out like really good logical points, and he's just not paying attention. He's lost it. He's too far gone. Importantly, I'm glad you brought her up because Batgirl is the voice of reason for both Batman and and Gordon.
Yeah.
There's a place where she turns on Batman and goes to Gordon, and then there's a place where she turns right back toward the end. She's really skeptical and doesn't like the idea of the police force thing, of them all being integrated. But what Jack says, I think it's Jack, when he predicts who will do what when they set that whole thing up, the terrorism oppression thing unit. When they set that up, he says Batman won't go along. Batman doesn't go along. Batgirl will because Gordon can convince her. That also happens. And then at the point where Gordon says we have to go arrest Batman, he's the problem. Again, she remains the voice of reason. She's able to see all sides to this. She sees the ways in which Batman is right, and Jack is right, and Gordon in the middle. And so when you get to that point where he says we have to go chase Batman, she goes, I'm done. And she takes off the badge and she leaves. And she is the one character that really doesn't change because she's kind of got it all figured out through this.
Yeah. Wouldn't she be worried that her dad's going to recognize her working so closely with her? That's not even a thing that comes up in the book.
Yeah, but it's not like Batgirl's never worked with Gordon in anything before.
I know, but such close proximity and so frequently when you're on the task force.
Yeah,
he's gonna find out.
Okay, you know what? If we're gonna nitpick things like that, I'm gonna say this. You know what? One of my little nitpicky issues of this book is Harvey Bullock is too sophisticated in his speech. Harvey Bullock is really eloquent in this book.
He's a little dumb early on, but that kind of goes away.
It does. It absolutely does. No, Cinematographic, we are not talking about the Batman or an animated movie right now. We are talking about White Knight, the comic book series, the 8-issue miniseries by Sean Murphy from 2017. Read it. It's amazing.
It is great.
We think it's amazing.
I was very happy reading the entire thing. There's some, like, I've tried to get into some of the more modern runs, and like I'm so far out of continuity that I feel very overwhelmed half the time reading it. But this was so easy to plug into and read. It was like, a Hush or just any of those, Long Halloween, just one of those ones that you can just plug into, not having to know anything that came previous to.
Except it wasn't written by Jeff Loeb, and if people remember this later on as a great Batman book, they'll be right about it. Yeah,
they should. They should.
I like Halloween, but it doesn't come together at the end. That book actually makes no sense at the end.
Yes. But either way, of the ones that I've read, which aren't too many, this was definitely one of the easiest reads. Yeah. Not that it was short or anything, but it was so easy to just keep turning the page.
No, it's not, but I didn't care, I wasn't
exactly.
looking at my watch at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all great.
John Ty, thoughts on how Jack gets arrested at the end and Duke Thomas in the book. I like how Duke is used. It's maybe a little bit typical where you have to have your crusading black guy from the hood working with the noble white savior guy, but that's also discussed in the book too. And so I think that's handled in a real thoughtful and kind of nuanced way. I like that Duke is a completely different character. He is a total reinvention.
I don't know that character at all. I liked him
Duke Thomas is not Robin. He's during Tom King's run. It's I think I can't remember if Snyder came up with him first and then King ran with him. But the idea with him is if I'm remembering it right, because it's been a while, is Batman's gonna try something new. He's gonna work with a guy who doesn't call himself Robin. It's kind of all it is. It's just he has this guy who's Duke Thomas, who doesn't call himself Robin, who sits in the Batcave and is the guy in the chair and occasionally comes and helps him on missions. It's not really that different from Robin, except he doesn't go on missions all that much. And so in this, they're just taking that character and doing something completely different with him. Then Joker taking back over at the end, I think is kind of inevitable. I think you have to do that. And again, you got a ticking time bomb. There's always this wonderful sense of urgency of when is he going to run out of pills and get taken over again. He has to keep taking more pills to keep subduing the Joker, and then by the end, he runs out and he can't handle it anymore. and Joker takes back over. The timing is maybe a little bit convenient. It's lucky that they're able to solve this whole problem and take down Neo Joker before that happens, but whatever. And then now you have the Joker again. I think if he was able to stay Jack, like, it might be interesting if down the road he can get more pills and then he attempts to remain Jack. But I think for the sake of this story, you do kind of need you do need him to stay the Joker so that you can have a reason that you need Batman to stay around. If he's able to, because it's the same reason that Two-Face has to happen at the end of Dark Knight, right? And we haven't talked about the Dark Knight of this either, but obviously that's a big deal in this. Joker, like, Jack is essentially a less tragic version of Harvey Dent in that movie, and they even call it a White Knight. It's the same thing. The only difference is it's backwards, in that he's going to transform into a villain in Dark Knight, and in this, he was a villain, and he gets out of it, and then he has to transform back because of the whole pill issue. But yeah, I don't think it would have been a great idea to try to leave him Jack at the end of this. I don't think this book warrants a happy ending. I think it warrants an ambiguous, hopeful, but who knows ending. Don't you think?
The way you just explained it as well, like, it's such a reverse Batman Joker thing. Like, Jack creates non-Batman Bruce. Like, Bruce.
Yeah.
That's great.
Isn't it?
Now that we just talked it out, like, that's fantastic.
That's
that
exactly
Joker is creating
Batman, and then he creates Bruce Wayne.
That's so good.
Pretty freaking cool. Yeah.
That's great.
And
I like that a lot.
Yeah, no, it's lovely. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Symmetry.
Cinematographic. The comic is on DC Universe if you want to read it online.
Yeah.
Okay,
type in
guys,
White Knight. It's good.
Anything else you want to make sure and mention, Dan? We should probably go ahead and go on to our last segment real fast and then close out the show.
Yeah, we hit everything in there that I mean, we hit things that I didn't even realize until right now. So,
I know it's late, guys. I made the mistake earlier of saying like half an hour with that book, but it's too dense. There's so much in there.
Hey, we talk forever. It's fine.
I sure hope that we did it justice, because I think it's absolutely excellent. And it's another one of those stories where I'm like, I mean, this is a very, very different thing, but it's kind of like how I felt after Dini's Dark Knight, which is not a Batman story, but a story about Paul Dini dealing with his own. It's an autobiographical story. But when I got to the end of that, I was like, I don't know how. It's an instant classic. It's like, I don't know how the world like existed without this book. And I felt that way with this. And I got to the end of this, and I was like, I just thought I'd seen all the deconstructionist Batman stories. Yeah. I need some more stories that aren't that. We're just not doing enough not deconstructionist Batman. But it works, and it makes it fresh again. And once again, I get to the end of a good one, and I go, okay, let's quit doing this. Like, let's put it to bed.
Well, I mean, that's what happens when you have an 80-year-old character. It's been done to death. There's been a million different iterations.
It's like slasher horror films, right? Where you feel like it's exactly out, and you have to keep commenting on the genre and finding ways to
birth and rebirth and everything else.
Yeah. Can you believe Cabin in the Woods is like 8 years old now?
I love that movie.
Anyway, so we're going to go on now to the Bat Chat, and if you guys want to ask us anything else related to Batman that's not about the thing we just reviewed, anything about Batman or tonight's topic, Batmobiles, feel free to ask some things right now. We'll answer a couple things real quick, and while we're waiting for that, I just wanted to talk real briefly, Dan, about reformed villain stories, which is a topic that's come up on a couple of our shows. We talked about this some with the Clayface episode. We could have done this topic there too, because that was the Batman Clayface is a character that at one point tries to be reformed and then kind of isn't able to do that. So I just wanted to talk about that and ask you, aside from this, because this is something of a reformed villain story too. Apart from White Knight, do you have a favorite of those? Either a story or just a character that is as interesting or more interesting to see a reformed version of?
Oh gosh, I mean, within this story, I liked the whole Mr. Freeze aspect of it all, and like a lot of the time, particularly with the animated series, we gave him that kind of sympathetic background of he's just trying to save Nora. So I just love in the Arkham games whenever he goes Nora, but. Yeah, he's so good. But no, I've always really kind of, outside of Clayface. Clayface is kind of my favorite. But outside of that, I always love when they kind of tackle Mr. Freeze in a little bit more of a sympathetic angle, as a guy who's just, looking to cure his wife and by whatever means necessary, whether it is, working with Batman in a good way or in a different way. I loved the Arkham Knight, and I don't think I had finished it ever, like on my playthrough back in the day, but Arkham Knight was the first time I'd ever seen where Nora finally got out of that damn tube, where there was a finality to that story. They kind of gave an end to that Batman the Animated Series setup of Mr. Freeze, keeping her contained and trying to heal her. And her giving him permission in the end to let go.
Yes.
And that really touched me, and I was actually finally happy to see a finality to that story.
Well, and we've done a finale to it before, but it's been more tragic and a lot kind of sadder and more messed up than that. Because the way the animated series does it is she apparently so you get what is it, Sub-Zero, where she's actually...
I still haven't seen that.
She's actually saved at the end of that, spoiler alert.
That's fine.
We see it happen off camera, though. Or we don't see it.
No.
It happens off camera.
We see it happen.
We don't see it. We see it happen. No, we don't see it. That's the point.
Yeah.
You hear somebody on the news that's like, Nora Freeze was revived, and then we're told, and then we sadly see Mr. Freeze like in the snow, like just walking away by himself. I don't think he has a knapsack on a stick, but he might as well.
Nat Sap on stick.
Oh, I can't believe you immediately thought to go to the Lonely Man theme. That's fantastic. So anyway, so he is that's the Incredible Hulk Lonely Man theme. So
love it.
He's walking away, and you hear the newscaster, if memory serves, say something about Nora coming back, and she's living now, but she didn't really want anything to do with Victor Freeze, and they didn't actually reconcile. They didn't get back together.
Oh no, that's sad.
Yeah, so she comes back, but he did all of this not for nothing. He's glad she's alive, but he doesn't get to have a life after that. So yeah.
Oh no,
that's kind of sad.
That is sad. Well, it was sad in the other, like in the Arkham Knight version. It's she dies.
I don't even remember exactly what happens in that. Like you just mentioned,
it's in the DLC, so
maybe I didn't play that part. I bet I didn't.
Yeah,
I bet I didn't.
Well, you have to do this big obnoxious tank battle, and I don't mind the tank battles, but it's a long tank battle fight.
Well, I'll either never deal with that or just watch the cutscenes on the internet.
But it's Batman defeats all the tanks that are coming in and helicopters, and then because it's a bit of a rush for Freeze to try to keep the integrity of the tube or whatever. But no, ultimately she has to come out of it, and she's revived, but she's still going to die. And she gives him permission to just let go. She didn't want him to become this. So that kind of story.
Blue Dragon 5 says in the animated tie-in
so
comics, Victor and Nora had a nice reconciliation. See, somebody writing that book was like, "This is too sad. That's not."
You can't just leave it there.
I'll have to read that at some point.
The cold, lonely man.
Let's hit a few more questions here. I'm sorry, did you want to say something, Dan?
No, that's it.
John Ty, $5 super chat. Thoughts on the sequel to Dark Knight's Metal called Death Metal? I never finished Metal, to be honest with you. Earlier, he or somebody else asked what I thought of Metal. I loved what I read of it. I thought it was super imaginative. I thought it was goofy and nuts in all the right ways, but also wonderfully chilling. Like, it's... What I read of it, anyway, is Snyder at his best doing really quirky sci-fi horror, and his stuff is always best with Batman when he's doing horror stories. His weakest runs are just not... they're just not that kind of thing. He's good at ominous. He's good at chilling, foreboding, creepy stories. He's not as good at straightforward Batman stories. But he got weird and crazy with Metal, and also still made it kind of messed up and twisted, and it worked out really well. And I love the title of that book because it reads like what it sounds. It's metal in the sense that it's like 80s metal.
Metal!
That's what it is, yeah. And it's neat. But I've never finished it. I need to review that at some point. And it may not be a bad idea for you and I to tackle that on this show.
Sure.
This has been a really good excuse to go back and review some Batman stuff that we haven't done yet, or that I haven't done yet. And as Dan said earlier, just to kind of educate Dan on some stuff, and me too. I mean, we're reading some things I've never looked at. I mean, and watching some stuff. Like I'm also getting an education with this. I never would have gone through the Batman probably if it weren't for this show, or at least it would have taken longer than it has. So
yeah.
Dro, what accident happened to Mr. Freeze that made him a cyborg in New Adventures? I remember. They tell us because there's a thing where he winds up on spindly legs. He's like a hat on spindly legs, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember.
But I don't remember what exactly caused it. But we are told. I just don't remember it.
Yeah, I don't either.
And
do you ever feel like
in Batman Beyond, and then he comes and then he gets body, and that's also an attempt at first at a reformed Mr. Freeze, and then people don't accept him, and so he just starts freezing everybody again.
As usual.
As you do.
It's so Futurama. Do you ever feel like we were not robbed, but do you ever feel like we missed out on having a great Patrick Stewart live action Mr. Freeze?
Yes, I've always thought that. Growing up, I was like, he's the obvious. In fact, so I used to read Wizard magazine, and when I was young and stupid,
me too, yeah.
I would read that book. And now I'm older and stupid, but when I was young and stupid, I would read Wizard magazine, and they would have those fan casting sections for movies that would never get made, because back then we didn't make comic book movies except for the occasional Batman or Superman thing. And there was, and some other stuff, but like early 90s, you didn't expect much. And they had a fan casting thing for Batman. And it was the first time I read one of the sections, and I didn't realize it was fan casting, so I thought they were reporting. So they fan casted Patrick Stewart as Mr. Freeze, and I thought he was going to play Mr. Freeze.
Oh, man.
And ever since then, I was like, for a while I kept saying, I guess it fell through. Did you guys know he was supposed to play Mr. Freeze, and then it fell through? And of course, it turned out that was never the case. And then, ever since then, when Schwarzenegger got it, that's so stupid. It was supposed to be Stewart. I guess he passed on it. And so forevermore, I've been like, obviously Patrick Stewart needs to play Mr. Freeze. And so when he got Professor Xavier, I went, well, okay, that's the other definite one he needed to play. So at least we got one.
True. Definitely. But man, he would have been a good Freeze.
Oh yeah, it would have been perfect. And Freeze often has kind of a vague British accent, or he talks so matter-of-factly he might as well have a British accent.
Yeah. I will kill you, Batman.
Yeah, exactly. What is that? Robot?
Batman. Batman.
Blue Dragon 5. Cap, did you read the Batman Superman story where General Zod and Ra's al Ghul were teamed up? No, I don't know what that is.
That sounds cool.
You have to tell me the title of that. Find out what that is, because I've never, or I'll look it up if I don't hear from you, but I have never heard of that. That would be great. Dro, we almost had a 90s Harley Quinn and Scarecrow. That's right. That would have been Schumacher's third Batman movie, where that was supposed to be.
What was the name of that? There was a working title for it.
That was supposed to be. I know it. I knew you were going to ask.
I was thinking. I was thinking of it earlier.
Yeah.
When we were talking about the Batmobiles.
Immediately, Dark Victory came to my mind, and that's not it. What is it? It's Batman Triumphant. That's what it is, right? Right? Am I right?
Yep, it is Batman Triumphant.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. Cinematographic had it.
Cinematographic said it. I got it in my own brain, okay?
I know, and I confirmed it. It was on the tip of my tongue. I just couldn't remember.
John Ty, have you read Batman War on Crime? Yeah, I've heard of Retribution too. I don't know what that is, or if that was supposed to be the same thing, or if there were two working titles. I have no idea. John Ty, Cap, have you read Batman War on Crime? I have not. I've heard that's terrible, if it's the thing I'm thinking of. Dagan Spear says, Cap with a question mark. What?
Cap?
What's up? What can I do?
No, he asked multiple times, or they asked multiple times. What do you think about what happened in the Batwoman finale?
Oh, yeah. People ask. I don't know. I didn't watch that. Somebody said something about Hush, so I'm assuming that's what they're talking about. On Captain Logan show last week, people were saying things about Hush, so I assumed that the setup was for Hush. Okay. I mean,
and Batman's in there now, right? Isn't there? They've cast a Batman in that show. I'm pretty sure.
I figured they would at some point, since they were allowed to do it with Superman.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they cast I know there is a fleeting Batman in that. Hush was made to look like Bruce.
I see what it is. So they cast somebody to play Bruce Wayne so they can do Hush and get around having a Batman. But then maybe they'll do a Batman. I bet that's what they're doing. Honestly, guys, I don't care. Like I don't want really anything else to do with that show. I'm not saying I'll never watch it, but I don't want to.
Just watch the first episode of Batmosphere.
I'm pretty
Wasn't
good
that Batwoman?
at letting. Yes, I'm second. First was Alfred.
Oh.
I'm pretty good at letting people peer pressure me into reviewing things, so it is possible at some point I will end up watching more of that show. But there are things that they did in that first season that I've heard about that sound ultra obnoxiously sappy and preachy, and I just don't want to sit through it. So it sounds like a waste of my time, which is kind of how I felt about Supergirl the longer I went on with it. Tyler, when Burton was originally going to make Forever, he wanted Brad Dourif for Scarecrow, which would have been amazing. That's perfect casting. It would have been absolutely fantastic, of course.
Absolutely.
Oh, John Ty says War on Crime is a Paul Dini and Alex Ross book. I didn't know that. I might look at that at some point.
Well, and Rene Auberjonois, how do you pronounce his name? I can never say his name. Auberjonois. He was Crane. Was he not in
No.
Forever?
He played Dr. Burton. Named after Tim Burton,
he did kind of look like Tim Burton a little bit,
and he looks like he should be Crane, working at Arkham, but he's not. He's Dr. Burton.
I always thought that was Crane.
I did too, until I listened to the dialogue because
Dr. Burton.
Because what's her face comes right out and calls him that. Chase Meridian calls him Dr. Burton because they walk up to Riddler and she's like, Dr. Burton is here, and yeah.
Chase Meridian is such a stupid name.
and what
a stupid character,
and what a grand pursuit you must be. Vernon says, I think Mike. Well, that's what Riddler says.
I know.
I think Michael Emerson could be a good Scarecrow. Emerson is also a really good pick. Yeah, there's a lot of good creepy actors in Hollywood that could be good Scarecrow. Those are just two of them. Anyway, well, guys, thanks a lot for watching. I think we're going to go ahead and call it a night. We've been at this for, what? Wow, this is the longest one of these by far. But it's Batmobiles. It seems worth it. So 2 hours and 45 minutes. Thanks for sticking here so long, Dan. I'm sorry it took so long, but we had a lot
I'm fine.
Well, you do 24-hour streams. You're probably used to sitting in a chair.
Yeah, well, and when this, I think this is one of our smoothest episodes yet. I think this is... We had a lot of good points about what we were talking about, and there was just like a lot to go off of.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it a lot. And this was one that just came together despite all of my good intentions, right? Like,
that's how it goes.
I got really lucky with this. Like, I didn't know, like, thanks to David, because he sent me a message yesterday. I was like, did you know that this Batmobile documentary dropped? And I was like, I've never watched that. I probably ought to. So then that informed the show. And then this turned out to be, like, the most Batmobile-y story ever.
Yep.
I was like, I cannot come up with a Batmobile story. And then it just fell in our lap. Just the thing I wanted to talk about anyway.
Serendipitous.
I read the first 3 issues of this, 2 or 3 issues of this, when it was dropping, and then never got around to finishing it because I kind of fell out of new comics. And as I've been wanting to do this forever, I will probably, now that we've done this, go ahead and read the second book just because I'm really curious to know what happens.
I think I'm going to too, yeah.
And then we can review it down the line because DC Universe drops a year after things finish up. So I have other avenues where I can go and read stuff, but I don't know if Dan's would have another way besides DC Universe, so we won't review it real quick. We'll do it sometime down the line. So Dan's, we do this on every show. I don't know what we're going to talk about next show, but I happily though, we will take suggestions. So right now, right before we finish out, if you guys want to leave any topic suggestions for next show, can be a villain, can be an aspect of Batman lore, whatever cool thing you come up with, we will consider it, and we might even decide right now on camera which thing we're going to do next time. That's what we did for Batmobiles. It worked out really well. So we will wait for folks. We've already got a couple ideas. Blue Dragon 5 says we can do a Gordon show. That's not a bad idea.
I like that idea.
It's a good idea. Now, I don't know if you'd want to go to more comics or if we would want to find something to watch, like an episode of something. But we could figure out what the review was later on.
You're a good man. Jim Gordon came to mind. The Harley Quinn episode.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
With Clayface's hand. That episode's
I don't
great.
know if I want to do a single episode of that
No,
show.
I know. That's just what came to mind.
That's funny though. Tyler says Jim Gordon in pajamas show. That's hilarious.
We didn't talk about it, but Bruce in that little pink nightie in Batman White Knight was amazing when he just popped up, because he's like in the shadow and you think he's in his suit. Well, apparently his suit is under that somehow. I don't know. But that was hilarious.
Yeah, Blue Dragon 5 says I am the Knight, the TAS episode. I don't know how much TAS we're going to go to on this show, just because we've done a lot of commentaries on that. But we may do that. We may do some for things that we didn't get to commentaries on, because we never finished Bat Chat. And
yeah,
I'm saying for sure.
I think there were some that were in the can that never came out way back in the day.
There were, but we would probably have
complications, all that jazz.
Yeah. It's complicated. So this has been a replacement for that. I'm also not opposed to occasional commentaries on this show either. That's
for sure
we could do. We could totally, Dan, do our regular segments and then do an episode or two of something in commentary form. And maybe that would be a thing to do for TAS. And I don't mean moving forward every show we do that, but it may not be a bad idea to do a couple, 3, every now and again. So
I'd be absolutely down.
Tyler asks if we've done a Robin show yet. We haven't. There's a lot of different ways to tackle Robin. We could do them, and we could do Robin shows as the
there's
we could
different ways to tackle Robin. Just running from the front, running from the side.
Yeah.
Just from above, tackle him that way.
You could just try to get it to eat rice and explode. That's a way to deal with tackling
a real Robin.
Yeah, I think that's what we're talking. He's just got this middle picture of Dick Grayson just eating rice. Anyway, but yeah, we could do a Robin show where definitive Robin just means like favorite character that has been Robin, or we could do Robin shows where each one is a different Robin, and then we pick like on-screen versions of them for our favorite. So there's a lot of ways to tackle Robin. I mean, there's people that love Robin so much they would do this show, but just talking about Robin. It'd be Robinsphere.
Hey, people who know me know I love Dick.
Yeah, my favorite is Tim Drake. So we already did that. We already did definitive Robin.
All right. That was the entire episode on Robin. Sorry, everybody.
There we go. Sorry, guys. You're not going to get another one. Let's do Jim Gordon next time, and we'll just figure out.
I like it.
That'd be great. And segueing off of a really good Gordon story, we'll find another really good Gordon story. I don't know what we'll do yet, but we'll look around and figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
All right, folks, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you had a good time. We certainly did, and we will see you again in about a month. I mean, I'll see you again in about tomorrow, because tomorrow night is Star Trek Club. And, Dans, if you happen to have nothing better to do, you're welcome to come in and be on a Star Trek Club with us.
Yeah.
I know you want to do that at some point.
What are you doing tomorrow?
Well, the wheel will decide.
Is it a commentary show?
It's a commentary show. We do 2 episodes, and people leave us super chats and pick things on the wheel, and we have put a few things on the wheel ourselves. We have about 20 episodes, and also Star Trek Beyond is on the wheel right now. So if that comes up, we do a movie.
Ooh.
Yeah, and we have segments on that show too. So it's about a 2-hour show. And we're also doing we're also going to be going into tomorrow night top 10 Star Trek TNG episodes, which we'll do 5 across 2 shows. So tomorrow night, Adam and Brandon and I are going to count down our bottom 5 TNG episodes, and then our bottom 5 top TNG episodes, and then the next week we'll do the rest of them, because we did 10 TOS in one show, and then we had to just watch 1 episode because we didn't have time to do 2.
Yeah.
So we're splitting it up into 2 halves now. So anyway, but let me know if you want to try to be on that show. You're totally welcome. And in the meantime, we'll see everybody later. I was Captain Logan, and this was Dan's News.
I'm Dan's News. Bye, everybody. Stay safe. Love.